What's up, everybody? Oh my goodness, what is this? Are we back? It's the Super Movie Bros. Hey,
Super Movie Bros.
What's up, everyone? It's been a minute, but we're so happy to be back here. You got myself, Renee, LOWKEY Geek, and Blake the Wolf back for another episode of Movie Time. What's going on, dude?
Renee?
Yes, sir.
I just found out that if I have sex, then I will die. So I'm really having a tough time.
Okay.
That reference will make sense as we talk more about Beau Is Afraid. That's not a spoiler for the record.
No,
I'm having a really tough day. My day isn't as bad as Beau's, and I'm very excited to get into this. I know that we often like talk about what we've seen, but it's been a minute too. So are you ready to get into all that?
Yeah, no, it has been a minute. We, scheduling, all that kind of stuff like that, and it's sometimes it's just good also to take a break, to get things revved up again, get the creative juices flowing and all that stuff like that. And plus, I feel like the last couple of weeks there weren't any really movies that you and I would have been really that happy to talk about. I mean, we talk about anything, but I felt like Beau Is Afraid is that perfect movie, and one of the reasons why we started doing this in the first place, and to have those type of conversations about movies and go in as in depth in it as we can, without spending 4 to 5 hours talking about it, because this is one of those movies where you could easily do that. I mean, Ari Aster's movies, I think any one of his movies, you could easily do that. And I think what makes this great is that, one, this is another Ari Aster movie, and two, this is your very first Ari Aster movie. And I think that would be really, really fun to talk about.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how this has opened up your mind to the world that is Ari Aster and the A24 movies that he's put together. So we'll talk about all that stuff and so much more. But before we get into all of that stuff, as always, what are you doing here? Well, you're watching us. That's what you're doing. We are the Movie Bros Movie Time podcast, where it's like a movie review podcast. We normally do this every week, but we did take a little break. And I think now, as we go into the summer movie season, you're going to be seeing us a lot more frequently, as always. And we get together, two guys, just talk about movies and all that stuff. If you are brand new to this whole channel and you like seeing what you see so far and you want to see more of these beautiful faces, then all you got to do is subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Don't forget, hit that like button, because that really does help with the YouTube algorithms and get people interested in seeing this type of content and yourself seeing more of this type of content. Hit that notification bell so you get notified every time a new video is uploaded onto the channel. If you want LOWKEY Geek on the go, you can listen to Movie Time on the toilet, in the gym, while you're driving in your car. Then just check out the LOWKEY Geek channel on your podcast platform of choice, where you can download this and many other episodes for your listening pleasure. Also, lastly, if you are in a position to help support the channel and help the channel grow, definitely check out the affiliates that we have in the description of this episode. I partnered up with some cool companies where maybe you could find something cool for yourself or for a loved one. And by participating, you will be helping support this channel at no additional cost to you. Spring is in the air. People are looking for things to do outside, maybe new date, night ideas and all that. Definitely check out Fever Events, because they got some interesting things maybe in your city right now that you could check out. It's something pop culture related, or something, different for a date idea and all that, maybe the person you are taking a date on will really appreciate and all that. So with all that being said, now, normally I would say let's catch up, but it's been like 3 weeks, I believe, three or more, and we could save that for. Yeah.
I mean, I had to take off because 2 weeks ago we were going to do an episode, and but then I left my keys in the door.
Oh, is that what happened?
And then I left my luggage out there. And then I took some medicine that I had to get some water for, and I had to go get back and get the floss. And the next thing I knew, my luggage and keys were stolen. And
okay.
Is that an excuse or is it not? We're going to get into it because we're talking about Beau Is Afraid today. We were supposed to talk about Super Mario Bros., but thank goodness we skipped that one, because We're not. Let's not. I would rather not talk about it. It was fun. I had a fun time.
No, yeah.
I'd rather talk about how to blow up a pipeline. I know we're not getting into it. I'm not going to get into it. Fucking love that movie. It's a Blake
Okay.
movie. I like the politics of it. I like the tension. I like anxiety movies. It
Hmm.
was cool. So we're basically caught up at that point. And that I am just knee deep in Succession, the TV show being back, and
Oh,
listening to like 8
okay.
podcasts a week about that. So that's all I've been up to. Nothing else. Literally nothing.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, I've seen all like the major movies in the last couple of weeks. You know, I loved Mario Brothers. You know, even though the story itself was just very generic. But hey, if you're a Nintendo fan and you grew up with that stuff, that was the perfect movie for you.
I wasn't mad about it. Let me be clear. It was just
Yeah,
like nothing to really get into, but it
yeah,
was cool. A lot of fun references. So many
yeah.
references.
Like that's one of those movies where you'd be like, oh, I remember that. I remember playing that. I remember that character. All that stuff. You know, it's one of those type of fun movies.
You go to the Rolling Stones concert, you want to see satisfaction, and they
Yep.
give you satisfaction. You feel satisfaction. It's hard to be mad about. I get that.
No,
Hell yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. The one movie I will say that I did see that is not out yet is Sisu. I was able to see Sisu, which is, and I don't know if you know about this movie. It is, let's
Oh,
imagine.
you saw that?
I
Okay.
saw that. Yeah, yeah. So you know exactly
Yeah.
what I'm talking about. Yeah,
I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about.
you know what I'm talking about. It's kind of like a John Wick from Finland, that takes place in World War II, and wow, some of those scenes that they had was just freaking mind blowing. It's nice to see. You know, every year I try to expand my horizons and see movies from like other countries. You know, I think last year we were kind of spoiled with RRR. So what's going to be like that equivalent this year? I don't know if Sisu is going to be that, but so far Sisu is definitely high on my list as far as outstanding foreign movies that I had a chance to see this year. So yeah, definitely check that out once it comes out because I think you and I would have a fun conversation about that.
Hell
But
yeah.
Beau Is Afraid is one of those movies that, again, it garners and kind of demands a discussion after you watch it because there's so much happening in this movie. And like I said, Ari Aster, he is kind of like the king of right now, the king of movies that kind of garner these type of discussions after you watch it. He for a guy who's only done 3 movies, all mainly with A24, I feel like he is the director that has defined A24 to this point, and
Hmm.
this is definitely
Whoa.
one of those movies. Well, you could make an argument
No,
that the
I
Daniels
get it.
did so last year,
Redefined
even
in a
more
way,
so.
but yeah, no, he's
Right?
gonna be he's their biggest hit maker essentially, like
Yeah.
more or less. Like yeah, and then there's people who will do one with them and then move on. So
Right.
I actually don't disagree with what you're saying. And then there's others like that have a couple, but 3, you're starting to he's made a name for himself over there.
Yeah, no, for sure. And they're giving him at this point carte blanche. And I feel like, again, because of how popular Hereditary and Midsommar was, why not? I mean, let this guy do what he wants to do. And this movie, he really went all out. And I feel like this is definitely out of the 3, his most ambitious yet. It's when I kind of left my mini review on Letterboxd, I said this is Ari Aster being really full on Ari Aster, and it is one of those things where, from start to finish, you are questioning everything you just saw. It's just one of those things where what's real, what's not real. The best way to describe it to someone who hasn't seen it yet is it kind of is like a fever dream of someone who is suffering from all tons of paranoia, anxiety, with a little bit of like an Oedipus complex, right? So it's seeing into the mind and the lens of a person, an individual who has all of these things going on for them. And it's just one of those things where it's like Alice through the looking glass, where you really don't know what's real, what's not real, what's imagination, what's is a fragment or figmentation of his mind, kind of putting all of these things in front of you. So as an audience member, you are taken on along a ride in this journey, which some would probably compare it to certain parts of being like being John Malkovich. I heard someone said that there are parts of it, especially towards the end, and we won't spoil things just yet, but towards the end where it's kind of like Truman Show, like, where there's like kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
realization of things, and kind of
Mm-hmm.
coming to bear to bear with that, all that. So it is definitely one of those thinking type of movies. But the one thing I will say is, hands down, the performances were fantastic. I mean, Joaquin Phoenix was just really, really good throughout this whole movie. I mean, I guess he's pretty good at playing kind of psychotic, not psychotic, but a person with, certain mental issues and kind of having to have to deal with it and work things out throughout the movie. I think he's really good at that. It was great to see Parker Posey again. We haven't seen her in a hot minute, and she has one of
Oh,
those faces that when she pops up on screen, I'm like, wait a minute, is that Parker Posey? And it's like, yeah, that's Parker Posey. Patti LuPone, who plays the
mm,
mom. Oh,
mm.
so damn
Wow.
good. Especially if you are like a Broadway person, which I know you are, Blake. I'm sure just seeing her on screen was just fantastic for you, right?
You haven't seen Parker Posey in a while. I saw her 1 month ago on Broadway,
Oh, no, okay.
doing it was called Seagull. It was a version of Seagull, Chekhov, and
Hmm.
then but it was Seagull slash Woodstock, New York. I was very like it was a small theater, like 4 rows back
Yeah,
in the round, and she's walking by me for a moment, and she is,
nice.
let's just say, a lifelong fascination of mine, a crush.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, just huge fan of her whole body of work. And so seeing her live was cool. Seeing her in this movie was special because she's done some big movies and she's got some like Josie and the Pussycats, and like every now and then she'll do
Hmm.
like more bigger, like schlockier roles or whatever in some comedies. But Hunger Games is another one I'm thinking of.
Sure.
But other than that, like, I just can't get enough. I want her to be the main star of just about anything, and she never is. So seeing her have, like, it was a small part, but seeing her just come in and hit a home run off the
Yeah.
bench was great. And then Patti LuPone, I saw her twice last year on Broadway, doing Company, and it was my first time seeing her. So that was a bucket list check off there for sure. Seeing her perform Sondheim was special. Seeing her in this movie, a lot of Broadway people don't translate as well, especially if they're song and dance folks.
Hmm.
They don't translate as well to movies. This was a very good part for a diva, and
Oh
especially
yeah.
someone with her look, her ability to do the dramatic roles, and oof, the casting here was special. And
Hmm.
we have plenty to get into.
Yeah.
Um, while we're talking the movie comparisons, especially if someone's just coming in here like, I love this movie, I want to hear more about it.
Yeah.
A couple others I'm thinking of are Mother, the Aronofsky movie,
Oh,
which is
good
essentially
call.
like a
Yeah.
psychological horror art house, highly metaphorical, super intense, but not horror in the like monsters jumping at you way.
Yeah.
More like someone's going through some shit and having the worst day ever kind of thing. And then things
Sure.
happen. You're like, is that real? Is it not? Mind fuck stuff. And then I'm also thinking of, there's a lot of movies that are like, it gets close in either the mind fuck kind of way or the tension, like in a way. Yorgos Lanthimos gets into this world of tension and dissonance and anxiety to where you
Hmm.
feel it with like The Lobster, where things are
Mm.
happening and it's not quite sure what's real. Synecdoche, New York is one. The Kaufman movie, starring Philip Seymour Hoffman, R.I.P. Um, Shiva Baby is just like an anxiety, hardcore Jewish family dynamic movie. And
Yeah.
then we were also like anything else. Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou? Just because it's an odyssey, and this movie is an odyssey for sure.
Hmm.
But it does, and it's trippy at parts and dreamlike in parts. But these are all mostly movies that are just kind of close, or like they have an aspect or element. There's nothing like this movie.
No. Yeah.
It is definitely the one you talk about afterward. I'm glad I saw it with a good buddy, who's worked behind the scenes on movies, and we see movies together. We talk about them. This one was like, we're standing outside of his subway station for about an hour and a half because we
Yep.
can't stop
I could
talking
imagine.
about
Oh
the
yeah.
movie. And
Hmm.
that's why I'm glad that we do this, you and I, because this is where
Yeah.
we really get to flesh it out.
Yeah. No, like I said, this is the reason why we started doing this. And, it's to have these conversations with movies just like this. But I guess let's start off with, since I have seen Ari Aster's line of work with Hereditary and Midsommar, I want to kind of like put it into perspective for those who maybe are familiar with those movies and haven't seen this movie yet. You had Hereditary, which was basically a full-on horror movie. I would say that hands down is
Even the
definitely one of
director
those, like,
said that in an interview. He
yeah,
was like, he doesn't like to pigeonhole himself, and he says he's a genre filmmaker, but he's like, that one was his horror movie for sure.
yeah, absolutely. With Midsommar, I see that, and now I know he kind of wants to call it a comedy, like a horror comedy. I
Mhm.
see it more as like a psychological thriller that has some sort of comedic elements if you look at it as far as the lens through society, like that. So I could kind of see how that could be kind of tongue in cheek sometimes, but I do see it as more like psycho thriller kind of type of movie. This movie, now it's funny, it's categorized online as horror comedy.
Hmm.
I don't really consider this to be horror as far as the generic term of horror. As far as if you think
Right.
of horror, you think of like these are the movies you think about horror, right? But it is pretty horrific in the mind of a person who is seeing and experiencing a lot of these things. Like, so in that sense, that is pretty horrific. Comedy, there definitely is some stuff that you chuckle at and you kind of laugh at because it's really more about the absurdity of what's happening. And I think it's something like we kind of said before, where sometimes things are so absurd and over the top that you can't help but laugh at it. And I feel like that's happened a lot throughout this movie, where there were just so many absurd things that were happening, over the top stuff, things that you couldn't believe that you're watching or this could be real, that at times you laugh at it, and it's just one of those things. Um, so if you're looking at as far as like the comparison to his line of work, that's kind of where I would put this movie. This is definitely one of the more, this is a long movie of his. It's like clocking just a minute shy under 3 hours.
Mm.
Which, I will say that at times it did feel long. And I'll get into where I felt it was very long.
Yeah.
And basically, without spoiling anything, there's a part in the movie where he kind of goes through an alternate life of his.
In the
Uh,
forest.
in the forest, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was surprised with how long that was, and it's almost like a separate movie in its own. It's like if you were to do like a short story, that felt like a short story within a movie. Which was very interesting. It's like very folky, very um like a Greek tale kind of thing, like that. But yeah, there's a lot of things that you can dissect in this movie. And I mentioned the acting, and I thought the acting was brilliant. I have to talk about really quick Ari Aster's directing, because he does have, and I'll be very interested to hear what your thoughts are. He definitely has his own signature on how he does things. The way that he kind of frames shots, the way how he likes to pan from far to near to close, and vice versa. How he likes to put his subject in a very tight spot, and there are so many things that are happening behind them or around them, without really calling it out. I love how he does those things because it helps create the tension, like, because when it comes to, like, even though this is not really a horror movie to the main dictionary term of horror, the things that make horror movies great is not knowing what to expect. Like, is something going to come out of that window? Is something going to come out of that door? Is something going to come around that corner? And you kind of have like that anticipation. He builds those anticipation with his shots, even though maybe nothing happens. But as an audience member, you can't help but be like, wait a minute, is something's about to happen right now that is going to like freak me the fuck out or whatever. He has great, he does a great job at like framing these shots to build that tension, and that's it, build on that suspense and all that. And you do see that a lot in his last two movies. There are a lot of comparisons that you could draw from Hereditary and Midsommar that you could see in this movie too, where he kind of not reuses it, but he re-envisions a lot of the shots that he did in his previous movies in certain shots that he does in this movie. So as a fan of his, I was able to call out a lot of things. I was just like, oh wow, that reminds me very much of Hereditary, or oh wow, that reminds me very much of Midsommar. So again, he does have his signature, like all directors do, but it's one of those things that I really truly appreciate because, at the end of the day, this is very much an art house film. This is like a true sense of art house. And when I say like A24 has that signature styling of art house, this is a fine definition of that. And when I said that Ari Aster is kind of like the defined director and vision of what A24 embodies, you see that a lot throughout this film and a lot of his previous movies. So I want to ask you, as far as someone who's never been exposed to his line of work, how did you feel his directing was? The shots, the editing, all that stuff mixed in with obviously the performances throughout.
So the quick backstory is I don't really do horror movies,
Yeah,
and so when Hereditary is the big one early on, I was like, okay, this is not going to be one of my filmmakers, and all my
sure.
art house love and film bros that I have similar conversations as you with are going, no, it's worth it, and I'm going, it's not because I might not be able to sleep afterward. I
Right,
might have a panic
right.
attack. No, thank you, sir.
To
I
this
got real close
day,
to making,
yeah, to this
yeah.
day, I still would say that it will still cause you problems if you were to watch it today.
What about Midsommar? Same.
No, that I feel like now that you've seen this, I feel like
Okay.
Midsommar would be a little bit easier for you to stomach for sure.
So and then the other weird thing is there's some movies that aren't horror movies at all that still fuck me up pretty good. So it really is pretty hit or miss. It's just that it's a safer bet that if it is in that horror e genre, that it's more likely to mess me up. So I went into this one, took a little Klonopin, thank you, to Modern Pharmacy. I'm not sure if Patti LuPone's character is the one responsible for creating these drugs or
Right.
how it works, but I did that for multiple reasons, including you said the movie was long. It I've been alive and experiencing anxiety every day for 35 plus years. So I'm pretty sure 3 hours is fine, Renee.
I'm not saying
Um
look, I'm not saying that it was long, excruciating long. I'm just saying like there were parts that made me
it
feel like,
dragged
whoa,
kind of dragged a little, or it was
yeah,
even like a different tone. So I know what you're
yeah,
saying. I felt
yeah,
that where I was like, the length is currently exhibiting itself. I
absolutely.
wasn't mad
Yeah.
about it, and I do like an Uncut Gems or a Good Time Safdie Brothers movie. I'm like really enjoy anxiety movies,
Yeah.
which is weird, but to me it's very cathartic.
Mm,
Whereas ones that increase the anxiety because of horror or whatever, like those where I can't. I've lost a lot of sleep in my life because
yeah.
of the movie The Ring. Just saw it one time.
Oh,
Oh,
sure. Yeah.
no, thank you. Um, so, with that said, I've put off Ari Aster's films, and then for Midsommar, I read the description and the imagery in that movie, to my understanding, and based on the plot on Wikipedia, was like, oh, I never want to have that image in my eyeballs when I'm trying to go to sleep. Uh, that said, I'm gonna watch Midsommar. Hereditary might be one I skip because it is more
Yeah.
of a horror genre. But then after Midsommar, I'm also, as I've gotten older, it's become more comfortable for me. And as I've built some tricks. Like folks, go to therapy. If you're Beau, definitely go find a new therapist,
Sure. Yep.
and then start going to therapy again. Um, but I've definitely gotten some tricks to where I can distance myself from it and remind myself it's a movie and look at the edges of the screen and like put myself in the room, do some basic like sensory stuff and be like, okay, this is not actually happening. And that helps a lot. So over time, I've actually gotten better at them and I've seen some. Get Out was kind of a pivotal one where I know it's not horror,
Yeah.
but it's one that maybe would have messed me up before. And it was so important, so zeitgeisty. I had to go see it, loved it, saw it multiple times.
Mhm.
Um, so that's kind of my relationship to horror. To answer your question on this director, holy shit, this is an auteur.
Oh
Early
yeah.
on, I have this bad habit, and I'm good with my phone in the theater. It's silent, the brightness on low. But to let people know what I'm up to, I'll take a little picture of the screen and then put it on
Yeah.
Instagram. Be like, "Beau is afraid." Um, I There were
I've
three
seen
different
I've seen
moments.
you do that. I've seen you do
Yeah,
that multiple times.
yeah.
Yeah.
This one was interesting because depending on the movie or whatever, like I'm a little bit artful about it. So I'm like taking a picture. I'm like, oh wait, this is actually a good boomerang because everything is symmetrical and kind of
Yeah.
happening repeatedly. There
Hmm.
were three different ones. Next thing I knew, I was like, oh shit, I just put three Instagram stories because they were all so overwhelming and how beautiful they were, and the way the things are happening on the screen
Yeah.
evoking what the character is feeling, demonstrating action, advancing the plot. and just the French term mise en scène. If anyone's been in film
Ooh.
school, mise en scène, the
Ooh la
what's on
la.
the screen, the way that the objects are arranged on the screen, fucking phenomenal.
Right? Right?
So I was all about that, and it kind of reminds me of, I think there's a few like anxiety filmmakers who are really good at art house cinema and these kind of bigger movies that
Mhm.
make you feel intensely. So like Yorgos Lanthimos, Safdie brothers, and I'm going to put
Yeah.
Ari Aster on that list of like these are modern, highest level craftspeople around. I was blown away by the direction of this movie for sure.
No, I'm that makes me really happy to hear because I always felt like Ari Aster would be a director you would appreciate because of the auteur that he is, and I know you appreciate films like that, but the subject matter is always the thing that kind of was that barrier, right?
Right.
Now,
Well, like
I
I saw Shining eventually because it's Kubrick, and to me, Kubrick is kind of
sure,
like the number one dude for that. Or Hitchcock. I've seen some Hitchcock, even though they messed
yeah,
me up seeing them young. Um, I haven't had a healthy relationship with a bird ever since the movie
mm,
Birds.
yeah,
The Birds, but yeah,
yeah,
it for me something like Shining, Rosemary's Baby, Hitchcock, and then some of these newer folk like those Jordan Peele. Those are worth it for me. And
mm,
I find myself when it's artfully done, it's easier for me to detach myself from it because it's not just like jamming a sensation into your fucking brain. It's
yeah,
like a painting of something that's like, Scream, the Edward Munch painting or something like that, where it's like, this is a nightmarish image, but it's crafted expertly. And that's why it's in the MoMA or wherever it is now. Yeah.
yeah, no, for sure. What were your thoughts about the performances?
Dude, I could go off. We already talked about LuPone. Parker Posey absolutely crushed it. That scene, there's a scene, which if someone's seen the movie, they know what scene we're talking about, that we'll
Oh
have to talk
yeah,
about later.
oh yeah,
Joaquin Phoenix, to me, is one of the absolute best. I was listening to an Ari Aster interview about this movie afterward because I've been kind of like catching up on who he is as a director since
mm,
seeing this and being so moved by it. But he was saying like Joaquin Phoenix is one of the best actors, and he had high expectations for it. And was always wanted to work with him. He said working with him, it exceeded his expectations by a lot. Joaquin Phoenix, the Joker, the recent Joker movie, um, the Master.
mm,
These are a couple to me of like recent favorite acting performances, especially R.I.P. Philip Seymour Hoffman. Daniel Day-Lewis is retired. We don't have a ton of those like Marlon Brando level intense dramatic actors these days who are good at fully giving themselves over to a role and able to sell tickets at the same time, able to be the front of a poster and yet are really art house dudes. And I was thinking about it, like Joaquin Phoenix doesn't really do theater, but he
no,
reminds me. I've gotten to see Philip Seymour Hoffman. Michael Shannon is kind of like he's not a front of the movie poster dude, but Ethan Hawke. I've seen these dudes on Broadway. Never
yeah,
even heard of Joaquin Phoenix being on Broadway. He's been in a movie family like his whole life, right? So, but I was thinking about it like he could and should be doing just the best quality Broadway in the world. He's up there with anybody else on acting skills, embodying a character, doing
mm,
more than just a voice and saying words and dialogues, but like you see him physically, the way he from head to toe, the way he commits to something. And he's also such an intense fucking weirdo.
yeah,
He's great for parts like this. And that was another interesting thing in that interview, hearing Ari Aster talk about Joaquin Phoenix's craft. And he's not going to try to repeat the same thing over and over again. Some people are just going to memorize the words and saying the same way every time. It seemed like the vibe I got was that Joaquin Phoenix is really embodying the role. And there's a story about how sometimes he would just scream on set. No
mm,
one's filming at all, and he would just start screaming to like keep himself in that headspace. Which
yeah.
I, I'm so sad for the interns that are trying to bring him water or whatever. Like, what do I do? But
No, also he's like,
that's that's the level of just wild, savage acting that we're talking about here. So
yeah.
full love for him as an actor. Then the other parts,
Well, there
there's
was
a couple.
we should
Yeah,
mention Nathan Lane is another big name in this movie, who plays
yeah,
the character of Roger. so who is part of a family that he kind of like bumps into, quote unquote. A little wink, wink, if you know what I'm talking about. And it was really interesting to see Nathan Lane in a movie like this. I thought it really added a lot to the surrealism of it all.
Which is something else to worth mentioning. We're now talking about a few Broadway folks
Yeah.
between Patti
Mm-hmm.
LuPone and Nathan Lane. Nathan Lane's essentially like a Patti LuPone level,
Yeah.
a legendary diva of the stage. Also, have had the pleasure of seeing Nathan Lane live on Broadway. Um, there's something about that aspect that adds to the how surreal the story is,
Yep.
where the like, and we'll get into theories later, but these are roles that needed to be surreal and hyper real, highly dramatic, but also as if it's a plant or a staged
Mm-hmm.
scene or character to where you don't know what this person's intentions are. To use someone of the stage is a really good way to have a character whose whole existence might be staged in a
Yeah.
way. And the other person worth mentioning, and the name is Amy Ryan, who we might know as Holly from The Office,
That's right.
plays Nathan Lane's
Yep.
character's wife. Love seeing her in anything. She's
So good. She
fantastic,
was
and she
so good.
crushed it. She
Yeah.
crushed it here. I've only seen her in a couple other things. I know she's done other stuff that I haven't seen that's popular enough, but man, absolutely great work there. And then the other main actor that I'm thinking of, and he's done a lot of supporting work. I'm thinking of Lady Bird specifically, another A24 movie if I'm remembering right. But
Yep.
it's
Mm-hmm.
Stephen McKinley Henderson who plays the
Oh
therapist.
yes. Yeah, he's
That
good.
dude.
Yeah.
Every time I see him in a TV show or a movie, I go, all right, we're in good
Yeah.
hands. Whatever's happening from that character will be performed excellently. So overall on the cast, I'm trying to think of who
Well,
else. Like there's a couple other smaller characters. Is there anyone I'm missing as far as main cast goes?
before we go into that, I just want to say about Stephen McKinley. Like, I loved how whenever you see him on screen and whatever character he plays, he always comes across as like the gentle giant. But
Mm-hmm.
then there's always something behind that. You're like, wait a
Yeah.
minute, is he hiding something? Is there something sneaky going on? And I love how he kind of can play that role to the T. Um,
Yo.
Richard Kind was
Yes, I
in
was
the
gonna
movie at the
say
end.
that's the other one
Yes.
worth mentioning.
Yeah.
Mainly known for Cars, Toy Story 3, and playing the caterpillar in Bug's Life. However, I love him as an actor. He's done Coen Brothers stuff before,
Yeah.
Curb. He's done a few, like he is a high quality actor, and
Mhm.
he crushed it in this one.
It's so good.
A small part near the end,
Yeah.
worth the price of admission on that speech.
Yeah.
Which great actors don't want to do a courtroom drama scene?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oof. And to hear him do that was special in that exact moment. Which also, that scene was so CGI, would have been difficult for some proper actors, and yet he absolutely hit it out of the park.
No, for sure. And lastly, I will also mention that Armen Nahapetian, I think that's how you pronounce it, who plays the teenage Beau.
Yes, yeah.
The fact that he really does look very much like Joaquin Phoenix freaked me out, because I thought, especially when I saw this in the trailer, I honestly thought they did CGI work to his face that
Yep.
made him look like that. But I'm looking at a picture of him. He actually really does look like that. So I'm like, wow, that's fascinating.
There's a whole world of like child actor stuff where it's like you just want to look like a famous person, and in this
Yeah.
case, bravo.
Oh, yeah.
Which often I could imagine them being like, "You look like Joaquin Phoenix. That's not a good thing. You're not going to get the Disney role." It's like, wait
Right.
for it. I'm going to
Yeah.
be in a very acclaimed movie soon. Um, the I thought it was going to be like a son or something, or a younger version, but yeah, just full CGI.
Yeah.
A lot of the other parts are like there's the military guy, even the
Mhm.
daughter that you just mentioned, Kylie Rogers' character. They're kind
Yeah.
of like smaller parts, and they're just more playing cartoon level characters, like extreme versions of a
Yeah.
person. Um, So the main cast, so overall, absolutely brilliant work. Whatever the
Hmm.
director is doing to get that work out of them, and then whatever they're bringing to the table, it worked so well.
Yeah.
I do want to mention my buddy I saw it with. Just there's a scene. Are we doing spoilers yet?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay. I won't spoil it. There's a scene where Joaquin Phoenix is walking from one side of a field to the other, and the buddy just goes, "This is gonna get him an Oscar, or this will get him a nomination. Like he has to be." And we
Hmm.
know from experience, horror movies basically never get nominated. It is so rare, even if it's not horror, whatever genre, psychological thriller movies. It's almost impossible for a movie this weird to get nominated. Occasionally it happens. This is one where he definitely, in my opinion, we're in April now, but I would be surprised if in December I'm not arguing that he should be in a top 5 spot. And then I would honestly give Patti LuPone a supporting nod for
Sure.
that work.
Hmm.
Partially, like I know I've seen her in the show Girls. She hasn't done a ton of screen work as much as a lot of other actors, especially of her level of fame.
Yeah.
She's more choosy with her roles and is even slowed down on Broadway. But she originates Evita on Broadway, Andrew Lloyd Webber, and then Madonna's playing it in the movie. That kind of thing has happened to her before. She's doing Sweeney Todd, and then it's Helena Bonham Carter in the movie not long
Hmm.
after, things like that. So I think this could be a chance. I'm calling it, and just so I can audio grab this later and play it for you if I'm right, and then feel free to play it if I'm wrong. I'm not taking it that I'm not 100% about it, but this is one where if the Academy wants to give Patti LuPone, a legend of acting, although
Sure.
mostly song and dance stuff, if they want to give her a nod, this was a good role to do it for, and it might be the last best chance you get because that's a juicy role playing the mom in this movie, and she had
Oh
a
yeah.
juicy scene. She
Hmm.
delivers a line, and I kept thinking she's about to go more diva and more silly, more ridiculous, more over the top, the way stage actors can sometimes do. She says, "My own mother wouldn't touch me. Even if I was on fire, she wouldn't stamp me out."
Yeah.
And I just got
Yeah.
chills the way she delivered
Yep.
that line and that whole speech. She's got essentially a monologue that I could see
Oh
people
yeah.
performing in
Hmm.
drama class for decades to come. So overall,
Yeah.
you asked about the cast, fantastic.
Yeah.
One of the
No,
best parts
the
about the movie.
the monologue you're referring to, I've already seen a lot of people online, the movie pundits and all that, kind of comparing it to like Tar.
Mhm.
When she kind of monologues as well, it's very very
Yeah,
similar to that vein. And again, they got the perfect person to do that type of character with Patti LuPone because being the Broadway diva that she is, I think for those who are not into Broadway and all that, they may know her because of her rants that she goes off
right,
on.
right.
Like when she blows up at an audience member taking a photo, and then she'll go on a rant to them and all that.
Somebody took
Uh,
the mask off during the show and she's yelling at them during the
yeah,
show. She
yeah,
has multiple moments like that, and she's known, which it's part of her charm if you're
hmm,
into if you're able to accept the Broadway diva concept.
right.
If I'm the casting agent, I'm like, are you sure we want to do Patti LuPone like this? This
Of
is
course, yeah,
we're not going to do much basketball talk, but it's like bringing Kyrie Irving over to your team or something. Like this could go south in the
yep,
locker room pretty quickly. Things could get
yep,
weird. I don't know. Maybe my other understanding is she is very much a locker room presence, to use
hmm,
that term. Like she is, and there's gonna, of course, I'm sure be some diva behind the scenes drama, but she is very much on the side of Broadway, the production, the show must go on type energy. So maybe it's a brilliant choice there, but like goodness, if I'm the intern on that one, Joaquin Phoenix is screaming in one room, and in this room, I'm like, I got to make sure my phone's off, or else things might go real south. You're getting screamed at from both ends. Who knows? But that intensity helped contribute to the how brilliant this role was.
yeah, no,
It
absolutely.
was perfectly cast as long and the bet paid off.
No, it worked. It really really worked. And the one last thing I will say as far as casting is concerned, and I didn't even notice this. Michael Gandolfini played one of the sons during the full forest scene, and I didn't know that. I guess I just wasn't paying enough attention to it, but it was nice to see him in a very very small role. Not even front and center there, but it's always good to see him on screen. Ever since I saw him in the Sopranos movie, I thought he deserves to do more stuff after that. So it was just really nice to see that. Before we go into spoiler talk and all that, I think it's very important to kind of say to the lay person who is not a movie buff like you and I, to someone who probably doesn't know anything about this movie, how exactly would you explain this movie to that person? And the reason why I bring that up is because you get like those like kind of descriptions online about a movie when you like look it up and all that. I'm going to read you what it says here on IMDb. And I know you and we both hate IMDb at this point because I don't know what the hell they did with their site and all that. But it's one of the ones that had a very concise and very brief description of this movie. And it says, following the sudden death of his mother, which I'm actually surprised they bring that up because I felt like that was like one of those like kind of surprise twists in the movie because you don't see that in the trailer at all. So I'm surprised that they actually bring this up. But following the sudden death of his mother, a mild-mannered but anxiety-ridden man confronts his darkest fears as he embarks on an epic Kafkaesque odyssey back home. I actually like that last line because that is actually pretty accurate to the T. What would you add to this if you were to describe this to someone who knows nothing about it?
I was working out the tagline. It's something like high octane adventure of a man full of anxiety to get home, afraid of what he might find when he returns, something like that. But
sure,
as far as if I'm talking to a friend, or I also try to think of it as someone casual when you're talking about how to describe a movie, because I could be like, oh, if you like this and this and this, and here's 3 references, and there's this one scene. I'm not going to get into it in that scenario. If it's someone who's just like, should I see this? And there's some people in my life I would say, no, do not see this movie. I know they'll either be frustrated by it or it'll be too intense or too violent. Isn't really the right word, but you know what I mean. There's definitely some moments of violence and grotesque intensity. It is a mindfuck movie, which some people that turns on, some people it turns off. It's full of anxiety. It's about a man's personal journey and what he goes through. And I don't think describing the movie, you have to talk about that trip home. But when we get into theories in a little bit, that to me is what the whole movie is about. But I don't even realize that until later, that is really the center of the movie. The whole story is essentially a lot about that journey home. And while we know that that's where he's headed, if at some point the car gets derailed and he now is spending the rest of the movie in the woods, I've been like, okay, this was actually a movie about him finding himself, not him returning home or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, I think at the end of the day, like an anxiety, mindfuck, personal journey inward, highly metaphorical. If you're someone who's going to like the Being John Malkoviches and the Eternal Sunshines and a lot of the other movies that we've mentioned before, high art house, high art horror type movies, or we need more words than horror because it's such a stigmatized word. We don't have them, but there's like psychological thriller. We need one that's just like it punches you in the gut and kisses you on the lips at the same time. Whatever that.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Yeah,
you're into that too. Oh, you mean as a description? Okay, yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, depending on the mood I'm in, yeah. So, but yeah, no, I like how you put it because that is a pretty good description of the effect that you feel while you watch this movie, especially afterwards as well. But I think at the end of the day, it's very clear that Blake and I enjoyed this movie. And it's going to be a movie that's not going to be for everyone, for sure. If you're a fan of Ari Aster, I think you will appreciate this movie 100%. But if you're expecting something similar to like a Midsommar or a Hereditary, I would say maybe tame your expectations just a tad because this is definitely leaning more towards the surrealism and more of the, I want to say, concept of a man and concept of a brain and how it works, because again, there are many moments throughout this movie where it's very difficult to decipher if this is real or not. And it's just one that, like you said, it's very much a mindfuck movie. So prepare yourself for that. But if you're into movies like that, then this is something you definitely have to check out. But I think right now is a perfect time for us to go into spoilers and to talk more deeply about the theories, the messages, all that stuff in this movie. But if you haven't done so yet, this is also a perfect time. Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, my bad. Audience reaction, because this is how we feel about it. How did you see it with the crowd? How was that aspect?
It's not fair for me to say because literally there were two other people in the theater with me.
You went at that time. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank goodness you have the ability to do that. I did essentially like a late show. It was mostly full. Most people seemed into it, and I'm sure about half of them were pretty befuddled, dumbstruck. If you're going into this one, like you're kind of like what you're mentioning, and you want to see Joker or proper horror movie, and you're going, oh, the guy who directed Hereditary, starring the guy who was in Joker, you might be in for a surprise there.
Yeah.
But it seemed like plenty of people were into it, and even the weirder parts and the more perverse parts, which is another word I would throw in the description.
Sure.
Like some parts of this movie are beyond perverse. But at the end of it, the audience applauded. Not everybody, but it was a good enough people, and there was definitely audible reactions throughout, and people who were into it and enthralled, gripped by the movie, sometimes by the throat. So with that in mind, I am excited to get into spoilers. Let me get back to what you were saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it was to follow up on that just real quick. There was one other guy in the theater who laughed at the same moments I laughed at. So at least it's good to know that we were on the same wavelength. You
found your soulmate. Oh, that's so special. That's beautiful.
Yeah. While the other guy was just so dead silent throughout the whole thing that I have no idea if he actually enjoyed it or not. It was very hard to tell. But he sat through the credits, through like I did and like the other guy did. So there's that, I guess. But
talk about the guy who snored during one of the pivotal scenes near the end of the movie. So it was a late show, and I know how it goes. I've been there.
That sucks.
And at some point, I just did a couple big claps in hopes that it would wake him up.
To wake him up.
Got the snoring to stop a little bit. So
yeah. But yeah, before we go into spoilers, now is a great time that if you haven't done so yet, definitely do hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Hit that notification bell to get notified every time a new episode's uploaded. And like I said, if you want to hear us on the go, you could catch the LOWKEY GEEK podcast channel on your podcast platform of choice. You could listen to episodes like this and other stuff that we do here on the channel. And, while you're walking or driving around and all that good stuff like that, because, we do have quite lovely voices here. And another good reminder that if you made it this far and you want to help support the channel grow, definitely check out the affiliates that we have in the description of this episode. But again, I mentioned before that I partnered up with some pretty interesting companies that maybe you could find something cool for yourself or for a loved one. And by participating, you'll be helping support this channel at no additional cost to you. And of course, we are very much appreciative of all the support that we get from people who elect to participate in those affiliates that we have there. So let me pop up the spoiler sign up on here as we begin to talk about more spoilery. This is more about just our overall theories, the things that we took away from this movie, the things that we think the movie's trying to say, and all that stuff. And I'll start off by saying this because we kind of talked about it briefly before we started recording, where you asked me a question: at what point did you realize that maybe not everything you're seeing is real? And I said I pretty much caught it very early on in the film, where the movie starts off with him seeing his psychiatrist, and it just looks like a normal kind of back and forth that you see in any movie that has a psychiatrist scene. The minute we actually see him walking home or going into his neighborhood, that's when I knew dead on, like, wait a minute, what the fuck is going on? Because it looks like a very post-apocalyptic, chaotic type of environment that is, you don't see this in everyday life, where you have a dead body on the floor that no one seemed to have touched. You have a robbery happening. You have, I believe, we saw like a rape going down. We saw a hooker taking away a John to do whatever they got to do. You see people doing drugs in the street. You see like this ambulance giving out food, but a guy throwing away the food because it's too hot. And then this same guy sees Beau running and rushing into his apartment building, chasing after him and all that. Immediately when I saw that, I said, oh, wait a minute. We are seeing a manifestation of all of Beau's fears, anxieties, and all of those things that really freak him out. And a great way to kind of call back is at the very beginning of the movie, before we see the title credits or the title card, we see a birth happening, and we see a birth that's happening in the point of view of the baby. And you see the baby comes out. The doctors are trying to like prep it and all that stuff. And you hear the mom freaking out. Are you doing it right? What are you doing? How come the baby's not crying? And all that kind of stuff like that. And it takes a long time for the baby, Beau, in this case, to actually start crying. And at the end, when he finally does end up crying, that's when the title card plays out, right? And I do feel like that is kind of like a great message of how scared Beau is going to be with his life and how very controlling it's going to be because of his mom, which is something that gets revealed throughout the rest of the movie, where every aspect of Beau's life seems to be a controlling situation or a manifestation because his mom made it so. You see a lot of different hints on that, and it's kind of hard to go in order here because it just has so much that happens. But at the end, I feel
almost
like
don't think we can do every single. There's moments and there's like chunks of time. Like he's at the doctor's house, he's in the forest, etc. But like the plot by plot, especially, it's a 3-hour one, but also it's so varied and like huge. It is an odyssey.
For sure.
If someone needs that, definitely there's websites for the Cliff Notes version where it's like, hey, what happened and then what happened. I read one afterward, was like, oh right, that was after because it's so intense and all encompassing and enthralling, and a journey for the character, but also for the audience. I agree with you 100%.
No, for sure. So I want to at least cover like some of the more important aspects and the important moments throughout the movie, and that kind of helps dictate and tell the story of what was really transpiring. Okay, one, my feeling and take from all of this is that, like I said, we are seeing a visual aspect and representation of all of Beau's fears, right? But why is Beau so afraid? Why is he so reliant on medication to kind of calm those fears down? And I think it's the fears that were instilled to him from birth because of his mom, because his mom was so controlling. And I felt like his mom is, in essence, kind of like the, not anti-men, but definitely has some stuff against men in general, that she needs to have Beau be the center of her world, or at least have her be the center of his world, kind of like of his, like he has to worship everything that the mom is there for. And it's like we alluded to earlier, it's like that diva mentality that someone would have, that everyone has to worship at my feet, which Beau in a way kind of tries to do at the end of the movie too, when the mom is trying to like belittle him and all that stuff. But we do see that there are many aspects of Beau's life that she was a part of. We learned to find that she was a very successful business lady, created this company, because her name is Mona Wasserman. And the logo of her company is MW. And if you paid enough attention throughout the movie, you see this logo pop up all over the place. It was the microwave that he was using. It was the meal that he was prepping. You saw it in billboards. Later on at the end of the movie, when you see her house, you see she has a wall of advertisements, which is like the timeline of her company. You see like the apartment complex that Beau was living in. Her company built that complex, and
Beau's picture is in a lot of those advertisements too. Like he was this poster child, literally.
Right. So it was just fascinating to see like how much of her life was really part of Beau's life. And it seemed like he never had a life of his own. there was a running fear of his that you alluded to earlier in the episode, that he was afraid of having sex because that he was told that his dad died while they conceived him, while they were having sex, because of a heart murmur. And his mom said that, oh, your grandfather and your great grandfather died the same exact way. So you have the same problem too. So in essence, it's kind of like telling him, you can't have sex, you can't reproduce, you can't have any other distractions that will take you away from me, like that, to have that sense of a control over him. Beau had a reoccurring dream of his mom berating a boy that at one time I thought it was maybe a long lost brother of his, but I guess the more you watch it, the more I'm like, oh no, wait a minute, no, this is Beau himself, and he's just seeing it, from like an outsider's point of view, where his mom was belittling him so much because Beau was actually at one point pushing back and talking back at the mom and asking for his dad. It's like, where's dad? I want daddy. And she locked up that personality into the attic, where now the Beau that we got is the subservient, the obedient, the I can't live without my mom, and my mom is the only thing that matters, and all that. And my mom told me not to do this and not to do that because I'm afraid. And it's just this weird, complex journey into a person's mind that has all of these fears, anxieties, and all that. And plus, on top of that, the embodiment and importance of his mom being the center of his world, and not having, and dealing with the realization that that may never change, even though he may want it to, but he doesn't know how to push past that. So the journey aspect that you brought up too, at one point it feels like it's the journey of Beau maybe trying to figure out how he can get out of that. Mm-hmm. Right. But then he all gets drawn back into it at the end of the day anyway.
At parts you're like, okay, this is essentially like Lord of the Rings, Odysseus. This is a Herculean story, and he'll overcome. And at some point, and I was waiting for it. We're in spoiler territory. I was waiting for it. I was like, okay, now he's gonna what? There's so many options, right? But like, kill his mom, run away, start a new life, fall in love with Parker Posey.
Right.
Nope. Nope. Yep. All of his worst fears are manifested, which is essentially what's happening in this movie. An option for what's happening, which I kind of want to get this out of the way now. This isn't like my mega theory of what the movie's about.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about what's happening in this movie, we're talking about things that might not be happening in this movie. We're talking about metaphors manifested. We're talking about anxieties manifested. And it's possible that I'm not saying that this is what the movie is about, but I have a strong feeling this movie could be about that. The setting of the whole movie could be in the attic. The entire movie takes place in the attic. That is
interesting.
Possible.
Okay.
Why not? Like, especially with what we see when we're in the attic, shit gets real weird up there. Yeah. We know that even if it's not in the attic, we know that Beau gets locked in the attic indefinitely. We know that his mom owns the building he lives in. So maybe she expanded the attic and he's a prisoner, but not literally chained up in the attic. Or maybe the attic, she is literally a prisoner in his mind. And at the end of the day, is it the attic or is it the building? It doesn't really matter. And even past that, metaphorically, he might be living on his own in Detroit and having a really easy, cushy life, and it barely hears from his mom and she doesn't bother him. But for all of us, if we're talking about she literally had the blueprint of his building. If we're talking about genetic encoding and like the blueprint DNA that our parents lay in us, and especially whoever, whether or not it's biological or whoever raised you, like is the one giving you your language, how you view the world. You might be getting their neuroses or disorders, or at least affected by them. And in some ways, a lot of our brains are just reactions to those people. And it's not quite that simple. Obviously, you have nature, nurture, etc. But there's a version where he's living a totally normal life. And this is just a metaphor for what's happening in his head. And there's a version where he's locked in an attic and everything is happening in his head and everything in between. That said, I think we do, when we're talking about this movie and we're talking about the metaphors, it makes sense to actually talk about them as if they happened, because they are shown on screen and they are telling us part of that story. I just, and we'll get into theories later, but at the end of the day, I love, one of the things I love about a movie like this is when it's open to interpretation. And that's why my buddy and I were talking for hours after, and why I'm excited to talk to you now going through this. because was that real and was that not, and what does it mean? And once you have it open like that, it can mean anything. It can mean so many different things. And when these movies are done poorly, it's it didn't mean anything, and I don't care, and I wasn't invested, and it could be this, it could be that. That was stupid. I have that complaint about some things. I don't just like everything that's open-ended. But when it's done really well and it's giving you clues, and some of the clues are 50-50, that's when it's really fun for me. Because then you're trying to piece it together and going, okay, so it might be this. And you're kind of like playing psychological detective of what's going on in this movie and what is the director trying to say. At the end of the day, the biggest story is what are you taking out of it and how does it affect you as an audience member?
No, absolutely. And I also find it interesting too is that I think Ari, he does want the audience to come up with their own conclusions, because lately if you've seen interviews where people are asking him about the movie, he doesn't want to talk about it. He really doesn't, you know.
Yeah.
And that could be because of many other reasons too. I've read articles where people are saying, well, are we getting a glimpse into Ari Aster's life? Is this something that maybe he's writing about because of experience? You know, we don't know because he doesn't want to talk about it. But
I was wondering that in the movie. Is this just his own, like his letter to his mom or some shit?
Right. Yeah.
I myself write, and I like it when other creatives and like screenwriters have done it. Some movie directors, some people, it's very literal what's happening. They're just telling a story and they want you to understand it perfectly. I myself and a lot of the writers I like are the ones who don't answer the question, what's it about? Because the real question is, what does it mean to you? And I have a certain movie buddy who gets pissed off when they do that. They're literally like, it could be anything, and it's just up to me, and I'm doing all the work. Why aren't you supposed to tell me a story? And if that's you, don't watch Beau Is Afraid, or you will be very disappointed. But that's part of to me, the high literary value of this movie is that it was very affecting, and yet it's unclear on the details of what's literal and what's not. That's part of what made it special to me.
No, for sure. But you also described a lot of people who watch movies. A lot of people, they want things hand fed to them, you know? Yeah. I'll never forget the ending of Inception, where, you know, when it just ended with the thing spinning and everyone's like, wait, that's it? Like, whoa, so is he like in the real world, or is he trapped in the dream state like that? Well, you know, this is up for your own interpretation. And you're like, fuck that, blah, 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 this and that. You know, it's just, there are just people who can't stand movies like that.
I'm the opposite. I have many times applauded or pumped my fist when I ended
absolutely
at that moment. And there's movies, a lot of my favorite movies are doing that. Basically, it's one way I know, like, oh, this director is doing the thing where they're asking the audience, they want to have an effect on the audience. And it's really a good way to get rid of the effect you have on the audience. If you go, so here's the ending of the story, and this is how you're supposed to feel, and the audience goes, okay, I feel that temporarily, and now it means nothing to me, and it won't be plaguing me at night for the coming weeks. I talked to someone else who'd seen it before me, and they were like, haven't stopped thinking about this movie since I saw it, and haven't had that experience in a long time. Same here. I literally have plans with another friend who saw the movie to meet up later tonight for beers just to talk about this movie. Like, I'm gonna have 3 of these conversations in 24 hours, and I'm not mad about it at all. That's special.
And I'm sure it's quite possible that your conversations will all be different because, again, everyone 100%. Takes things differently, right? So
I'll text you at like 11 p.m. half drunk and be like, "Yo, Renee, I got one for you. They just mentioned this. Did you notice that?"
Oh, I would love that.
Sometimes we text each other after some of these type movies, going like, "Oh, by the way, the director said this in an interview. That's a big clue."
It's like, "Oh, I didn't think of that. That's amazing." Yeah.
I will. Yes, audiences get mad about that, and especially like a lowest common denominator audience. I would guess that about half the people who are going in hoping for Saw 7 are going to be mad about this movie. That said,
movie,
I also had a friend who gets mad about that, but it's more of like a performative hater kind of thing. Like, oh, damn it, you got me. Like when you tell a joke or pull a prank on somebody and you pull the rug out from under them, or you do a Shaggy Dog story or tell a pun or a dad joke, and they're like, fuck you, that was terrible. But really, they did enjoy it. And I like grilled them on it. And like we talked through, I was like, well, here's why I like it. And they're like, no, yeah, I like it too. It's cool that they do that. I respect it as art. But also, come on. Like, so it's possible that those people who are mad about it aren't actually walking away giving it 0% on Rotten Tomatoes because they're so miffed. You know what I mean? Like, but I definitely walked out of theaters going, what the hell was that? And when that happens, it makes me love the movie even more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I love it. One of my best experiences was, and it's funny because this is also in the horror genre. The very first time I watched the Blair Witch, I'm sure you've never watched it, or maybe you did. Did you ever watch
Nope.
that? Okay, no,
What?
okay,
No.
yeah, but you're familiar with the ending, right? Because I feel like that's been parodied so many multiple times everywhere at this point. That
Honestly, no. And I can go. I'm
oh,
gonna go off camera audio for a second. So feel free
I
to
won't describe it.
go
No, I won't
wild.
describe it. I won't describe it.
Okay.
I won't describe it. But basically the ending was left kind of ominous where it's just like, okay, what exactly happened? Right? And again, just like what we're talking about now. And I there was someone in the audience who stood up
Did
when
you
the
say
credits
sorry,
just
ominous or ambivalent? Like, are you saying it was a scary ending or that it was open to interpretation?
both.
Okay.
It was scary and also kind of like, okay, what exactly is happening though? Because
Okay.
it just kind of like left it at with this one thing, and then you don't see anything else, but something's happening, but you're like, what's happening? And then it just cuts to
Inconclusive.
black and then
Oh
credits
yeah.
roll like that.
Okay.
And one guy literally stood up and just like, I paid $12 for this. And I'm just like, sure did, buddy. And I loved every moment of it. It's
To
like,
me, like you get more bang for your buck with a movie like that because now you have the movie is in your head and you
yeah,
get to write the ending of it. And if you don't want to think, and if you have a fucking shitty day job and you just want to
yeah,
drink beer and shut off, and then maybe don't go see movies like this or
yeah,
maybe at all because you have to do some work in a movie to be
yeah.
like, oh, what was that? What am I feeling? Why? And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's probably the same people who are like therapy is a bunch of bullshit. You just talk about your feelings and don't get nowhere. I,
Yeah.
bro, like I get more value out of it because and it's one of those the other thing is yeah there are some where you have to do a lot of work. Like I don't like puzzle movies too much because sometimes you
Sure.
have to do actual like diagramming it out and my brain doesn't work
Yeah.
very well that way. But the one where
Yeah.
it's basically you get out of it what you put into it, that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what's happening here. And all you really have to do if you're that guy is be like, what do I think happened at the end? It was probably this. And now you have an ending. Congratulations. And the
That's it.
director would be fine with your
Yeah.
conclusion.
That's all.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, it is fascinating how different people react to these type of movies like that. But let's go back to the movie here, where if you really think about it, the movie is split into four parts, right? You have the first part where it's Beau and experiencing Beau in his everyday life, dealing with a situation, right? And I feel like that's what led to him trying to visit home because of the anniversary of his dad's death and the anniversary of his parents, right? It was like an anniversary. It was like a multi anniversary thing. It's like his dad death's his own birthday because it was when he was conceived, right? In essence, right? And it was also the anniversary of his parents. So that in itself was just like, okay, this is already wow. Talk about mind fuck right here. And then not being able to go because, like you said, he oversleeps, right? Because this was a weird situation too, where he kept getting notes thrown because of like someone complaining about noise that he was not a part of, that he didn't do anything about. But I also felt like that again, we're witnessing the anxiety of Beau not being able to sleep because he's already so nervous about going back home. That idea of going back home or whatever the case is. At least that's how I interpreted it. It's like, like sometimes when you know there's something big important the next day, you can't
Oh,
sleep and
I've
you're
never
going,
slept before a flight or a job
yeah,
interview or anything important, which is fucked because then you're tired for the important thing.
right.
It runs in my family, literally. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like your mind will manifest so many different things that will keep you awake and like all your thoughts race and all that stuff like that. And in a way, this is what we're seeing here with Beau, in my opinion. And then as he's rushing to go out the door, he loses his keys. His keys were quote unquote stolen. His bag was stolen. And then now he's taking this medication that he needs water. The water's shut off in the building. So now he has to run across the street, which he hates to do, get the water. And then because he has no keys and he left the door open, everyone from the block decides to go inside his apartment and just create havoc. And again, this is Beau in his way manifesting the fears of what would happen if I left my apartment. and this is exactly what would happen, and this is all that's going on,
If
which
if I
led
yeah,
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
well, just before you get to part two, I don't want to
Yeah,
interrupt
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I just wanted to close things out where it's just like, okay, that's when he finally gets the call about his mom passing, that he has no choice, that he has to try to get back home. And which led into this crazy bathtub, running out of the house naked, and then getting smashed by a truck, kind of scenario, which leads into the second part of the movie, which we'll go into after you say what you have to say. But that's what I would say was like the first part of this movie.
100%. And this is where you're talking about when you realize things weren't as they appeared.
Yeah.
Part of my big theory on the movie, and at the very least, one where we know it's open to interpretation, and this is about anxieties manifest, and we'll get to more bigger picture theory stuff later, but like
Mhm.
the push pull of someone who's in an anxious relationship with themselves and sometimes with a parent. I had my little notebook out and was jotting things down early on, and there are much more than what I'm about to name. I'll just do a handful of
Sure.
these, but there's things where he's stuck in a push-pull, can't win situation, and as someone who has suffered severe and sometimes less severe anxiety throughout my life,
Mhm.
I related to it intensely. Like it was beautiful to watch it done so well on screen. He has situations where he cannot win and he's stuck, he's in a pickle. And
Yeah.
so the example that the therapist gives is one of the first ones I'm noticing. And then it becomes manifest, where the therapist is saying, if you went to a well and the water was poisoned, would you go back to that well next time you're thirsty?
Right.
And he's essentially someone who has to go back to the well, even though he's been
Mhm.
poisoned or might be poisoned, and he's anxious about that possibility.
Yeah.
Then he's then told by the same therapist, you have to take this medicine and you have to drink water with it, which
Right.
there's a metaphor there with a poisoned well.
Yeah.
But he has to drink water, but the water is off in the building. This is one of those pickles. He can't sleep because the neighbor is leaving notes under the door accusing him of something he's not doing, and the neighbor can't sleep. So now he can't
Right.
sleep because the neighbor can't sleep for an imaginary reason, which is sometimes how anxieties manifest themselves.
Yeah.
You hear or afraid of something that isn't actually happening, but because of that thing, now you're stuck in this fucking pickle again. He needs floss, and that's why he lost his
Oh
luggage
yeah,
and his
that's
keys
right.
were
Yeah.
stolen. And he can't leave home because he can't get back home, which
Right.
is a hell of a rub. And he's going through it with his mom, going like, I don't know what to do. I
Like,
can't
what
leave the
would
door
you do?
open.
Tell me what to do. Yeah, like essentially asking her to tell him what to do.
And what does she say? She says, I'm sure you'll do the right thing. And he goes, what is the right thing?
Right is the right
How do you
thing.
do
Yeah.
the right thing if you don't know what the right thing is? And this is some like
Yep.
shitty advice people give to people with mental health issues is like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just think through it. Just don't stop worrying about it. Well, how am I going to stop
Yeah.
worrying about it if the well is poisoned?
Right.
The wild tattoo guy is stuck in the door at some point, and he has to go in to avoid the tattoo guy. But to do so, he has to go around the tattoo guy, like kind of like taps him and like gets around the body.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then there's the scene which we've already spoiled that it happens, or I guess IMDb did too, which is crazy. But the mom's dead. The UPS guy played by Bill fucking Hader. If I'm not
Hell
wrong,
yeah.
I thought it was
Hell
Bill
yeah.
Hader. I'm
Hell
almost certain it's
yeah.
Bill Hader. I hope that's confirmed.
The
Love
voice is
seeing him in
very
Oklahoma.
similar. Yeah, the
The
voice is
face from the
similar, and
side.
from the side, yeah, totally. He could be uncredited for all we know.
So I'm gonna go and say it's Bill Hader. If I'm wrong,
Yeah.
fucking sue me and then press that like button again. Um, Bill motherfucking Hader saying the woman has no face or head, and he's going, but you need to identify the body. Essentially,
Mm-hmm.
that's impossible. This is gonna
Right.
cause this guy another panic attack. He's had back-to-back panic attack events. He when the surgeon hits him, which we're about to get to that, so I'll just stop it here. This is the end of my list. Like surgeon hits him with the car. The
Yep.
doctor, the person who's supposed to fix him, is the one who hits him with the car, which is another metaphor for like parental relationships. Like this is a person who's supposed to nurture me and save me, but they're
Right.
also the ones who are abusing me or hitting me. In this case, literally striking them with a vehicle. And then the fucking surgeon has the audacity to go, "You're a very lucky man, Nathan, motherfucker." You're a very lucky man because I'm a surgeon. Yet I'm the one
Right,
who hit you.
right.
And then another one that's like, there's just all these different contradictions all throughout. But all in the list there because there it keeps going. And essentially, the almost everything in the movie can be read and interpreted that way.
Hmm.
That is doing a great job of setting us up for exactly what the movie is this person who has to get from one place to another, who's
Yeah.
experiencing severe anxiety because of what they are going through, and how the movie is open to interpretation of it could be this or it could be that. And I thought that was a brilliant way to start it off, that part one that you described.
No, absolutely. Again, it helps set the tone, right? And it's kind of it's like those, kind of like what like to call a gut check. It's like if you could get past this, then
Yo,
you're good for the rest of the movie. If you can't get past this, then this movie is not going to end up working for you at all
yeah,
whatsoever, you know? So, but at that point, I was all in. You know, I already had things formulating in my
sold.
head. I'm just like, wait a
Yep.
minute. Like, this is this could mean that. I was just like, wow, this is going to be a wild ride we're going to be going through. And it leads you to part two. And I want to say part two and part three is the journey portion of Beau, right? It's like, it's the journey portion about him kind of coming to that realization that there's no escaping. He has to get back home, right? No matter what. And it's also a journey portion of I'm still realizing and dealing with the fact that I am under the control of my mom. But is there a possibility that I can get out of that? You know, like how can I escape this and this stigma that I have carried along with me for the whole time? And I felt like being in the surgeon's house, you know, we had Nathan Lane and Amy Ryan being the husband and wife figure there. I felt like this was Beau's kind of interpretation of what a normal family could be like, you know,
Mhm.
being in there because it comes to fruition that all of a sudden they're trying to adopt him, you know,
Mhm.
which is really really fascinating. And again, it's all manifested, you know, in his mind that he
At some point,
is. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, at some points, Nathan Lane is literally saying that they're family. He's calling him my brother, my
Right.
dude, my
Yeah.
guy. But at some point, they're literally saying like we're a family now. They're talking about like, and the sister is saying, "You're too old to be adopted."
Adopted. Yep.
Like
Hmm.
it's literally, yeah. That's I didn't even put that. I knew that that was like part of it, but I didn't put that together. That like the new family concept. Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and again, this is my own interpretation and all that. I'm sure everyone will have their own view and all that. But the way I looked at it is like, okay, this is because you notice they live in a very nice place, you know, very roomy. They do good things for other people, right? They take care of like those who are sick and injured, and the mom is very involved in all that stuff. But the mom is also in her own way trying to free Beau's mind. You know, like she leaves him these notes saying, "Don't incriminate yourself." You know, like try to, like she told him about a secret about a channel on the TV to go to this channel. You know, when you're watching TV, and it's basically a camera looking in on him. You know, and so in a way, it's like your mind telling yourself, take a step back and look at what you're doing with your life right now. Look at your own situation. He has the ability to rewind and fast forward and all that. You know, it's just like this is the moment where I could figure out is my life the way I want it to be, like that.
Mhm.
You know, I have a right to change it right now. I could, but will I? You know, and then I guess in Beau's own way, he gets sucked back into the fear and anxiety because of the daughter. Right, the daughter, the vision of the daughter forces him to do something that he knows is wrong, but you know he can't seem to step away from it.
Wait,
And
you're talking
then
about the vision of the daughter? You're talking about the drug scene in the car, or no?
no, no, I haven't touched that part yet. Yeah,
So
yeah. I'm
what do
talking
you mean the
about
vision?
the painting part. Like when they like
Oh
come
yeah,
to the room and paint the son's room with me and all that.
yeah.
Like tempting him to do stuff that he knows is wrong. And then,
Another
oh, you're not
pickle. I
right.
have
Another
to,
pickle.
and I
Yeah,
can't. It's I shouldn't. And if I do, I'll incriminate myself, which one person said I
exactly.
shouldn't do. But I have to because this character is forcing me.
Right.
Oh,
Oh, to be that person with already having those fears and those anxieties to be put into another pickle like that, you're just like, oh, this guy can't catch a break. And then because he wouldn't budge, She's like, well, fuck it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to drink all this paint. And now the guilt is put on him. The mom all of a sudden turns on Beau. Like, what the fuck did you do? You know, that it's like, again, it's like being able to control your destiny in your life and all that. Now, the one thing I will say in this portion here that I still need clarity on, and maybe you can help with that, is the drug part that you mentioned. The being in the car, taking the marijuana. Well, we don't know if it's marijuana because when he asks,
I think she said there
what's
was
in
three
this?
things in it.
There are three things in it, but she doesn't
But she
elaborate.
also might be fucking with them too.
Of
You
course,
never know.
of course. Yeah, but that was a whole big fuck to begin with because
Yeah.
she's like, Dad told me to take you home, but yet they're just driving around the block as they're smoking up. And haha, you didn't go anywhere. You know, you're still stuck here. So it's and Beau again cannot fight back. He cannot get out of the situation or whatever like that. So I felt like at least that portion was like another wave of Beau manifesting what another family life could have been. Or was this Beau's interpretation of what the ideal family life that was told to him is like, that maybe he never experienced? I don't know. It could be a lot of those things. But how did you see that part of the movie?
So I'm going to run with what you're saying because I was still in a world where I was like, this is literal, but some of the things happening aren't. So like, does the CCTV really tell the future? Which I kind of missed this, but apparently it fast forwards and gets him all the way to where he's on the boat later in
Yeah.
the movie, which
It
is
did flash like
amazing.
really quick. It flashes, and I remember the boat scene. I remember one scene
Amazing.
in the house. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah,
So I knew that some of it's not really happening, but I was still in a point where I'm not in full, everything's a metaphor for something. So I'm glad you brought that theory about that being the new family concept. That makes sense. And what I'm going to run with a little bit on that, and then I'll hand it back off to you.
yeah,
Um, I've done enough therapy over the years. There's this type of counseling. It's more for couples counseling, but there's this thing where when you are finding a life partner, there's one theory that you're looking for someone who is similar to your parents or the opposite
mm,
sex parents sometimes. And then there's another theory that you're actually looking to find someone who gives you the things that that parent lacked. So you need someone who's good at physical touch because you did not receive that. And for at the end of the day, like these things are just as like open to interpretation, depends case by case, as this movie is. But if that is his new family, it's interesting that if the mom is the one made him sick, he's looking for these people who are healers, essentially,
yeah,
who are so quick to take him under their wings, who are willing to do anything and everything for him. Later on, if you believe the mom, she did everything for him, but did she really? No. My
yeah,
interpretation of that mom-son relationship is that the mom was using him, locking him up, abusive, but she was essentially gaslighting him, saying, I did everything for you.
yep,
You made me lock you up, and that hurt me. Like that type of bullshit.
yeah,
His family's the opposite. Nathan Lane and Amy Smart's characters are so happy and loving and lovely, and they would do anything. And yet, the only other thing I'll ask, and I don't know if you already answered this, but do you think that they were plants hired by the mom? And or there's also the military guy who shows up around this scene, who's a weird character. Do you
yeah,
think he's a plant hired by the mom? There's also a dude at some point spying on Beau, and the understanding is there's there's an image later in the mosaic of the mom where one of the people, and now I'm having a hard time remembering, but I think there was at some point there's like it's clear that the mom there was a photo of one of or more of those people in that
mm,
mosaic, maybe. But anyway, not necessarily literally, because maybe those are just figments of his imagination
yeah.
manifested through the mom or whatever. But in the literal version of this movie, do you think that Nathan Lane and Amy Smart's characters are just the mom he's hit with an ambulance and
Mm,
she owns the ambulance company and says, here's what you're going to do. And maybe that's where we get to the Truman Show stuff where Amy Smart's character is saying, don't incriminate yourself, knowing the mom is in charge of this whole fucking charade, and which is I think the female character in Truman Show literally has a moment like that at some point, right?
right.
What's your take on how not really how real or literal it is, but is the mom running the show there or some of it?
Yeah, I think the mom ran the show throughout, all throughout.
Everything.
Yeah,
The
and
What about the
yeah,
forest? Well, we'll get to that in a second.
we'll
Sorry.
get
In
to
this
that in a
world,
minute.
you
Yeah,
think
yeah.
the characters are hired by her, the home is built and owned by her, the CCTV is run by her, etc.,
Yeah.
and that she knows the future, or maybe that's where it's a little bit of a metaphor.
Well, yeah. So again, it's all about control. It's all about control and all that. And I felt like this was the mom's attempt to throw temptation at Beau and see
Hmm.
where he would go with it. Because there's a part in that whole entire scene where again Beau knows he has to rush home because he gets a call from the lawyer, and the lawyer's like, "Your mom is not going to get buried unless you show up, and if you don't show up quick, you are embarrassing her legacy. You are, like poisoning this and that, blah blah blah, all that, making Beau again feel very guilty." So he begs and pleads to the couple, "I really
Hmm.
need to get home. I really need to get home." And they all of a sudden they're like, "Okay, we'll take you home first thing in the morning." First thing in the morning, Nathan Lane gets a call. "Oh, you know what? I have this surgery. It has to be done. I really thought this could happen. Is it okay if we push it to tonight? Like, oh, we'll do it tonight and all that, And I think, in Beau's mom's case, it would be like, "No, you are not delaying this. I'm getting home right away." In
They're
essence,
also saying there's a
Beau's
health concern with him traveling too, so they're even
right,
giving him a little evidence. Like,
right,
if you want a reason to believe it, here you go. You can't
right.
even fly.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like you shouldn't be flying. I mean, look, your
He said
stitches
your
are
what he said,
opened
your
up
bodies
again
will he said your wounds will open up on the plane, like, there's
because
gonna
of
be
the air
dramatic wording
pressure.
for
Yeah,
it.
because
Not
of the
because of
air
the air
pressure and
pressure,
all
they're
that.
just gonna open up like a
Yeah,
balloon, something
right.
like that.
Yeah, and then Bo's like, "All right, I'll wait. Yeah, you could do all that." And of course, that would upset the mom. It's like, "What do you mean you would wait?" And I think that's what kind of caused that whole part to go nuts, right? That's when the daughter started acting more nuts and
Mm,
everything. So
mm.
it's all about the control from the mom, I think, and that temptation and the
Interesting.
kind of the testing of Beau's kind of loyalty and allegiance to the mom, like just like, are you going to obey me and obey what I need, or are you going to try to veer off and do your own thing? Which I think eventually led into the third part, because that was, I think, Beau's attempt to really, like his pure attempt to really veer away from that.
To individuate, to use the therapy
Yeah.
term. I'm gonna go off camera real quick while you're doing the setup on the part three, okay?
Okay, sure. Yeah. So part three, we see Beau escaping the house because, all the shit went down with the daughter and now he feels guilty and, everyone's pointing the fingers at Beau. The household had this person named Jeeves who was friends with their son in the military, who passed away in the military. So Jeeves has PTSD, and they're trying to take him in and, like, take care of him and all that. But he still very much thinks he's in the war. So he thinks everyone is out to get him, everyone is an enemy and all that. So they send Jeeves out after Beau as he's running into the forest. He comes across this group of, play people who are very free and creative, and they put on plays. They're like a traveling, Shakespearean company. Let's just call it like that. And this is where it gets very, very metaphorical, where the play that Beau's watching transforms into an alternate life that Beau is manifesting, that kind of like, this could have been my life if I became more of an individual and escaped the clutches of my mom. So Beau lives in a farm and he's building his own house and he meets a lady and they start having a family. But then, like, this terrible storm comes in and wipes the family away. And now Beau has to travel and traverse the world to reunite with his family. And Beau is watching all of this happening in his mind and in front of him, where in essence he's seeing an older version of himself reunite with his sons who are there watching the play along with him, or they're part of the play. And Beau, an older version of Beau, stands up and is like, "That's me. That's my life." And he's reuniting with the sons, and of course the sons are asking, "Well, where's mom?" And he's like, "I thought mom was with you." And during this whole time, Beau's also, he confronts and comes across this person who says, "Oh, I know what happened to your dad." And like, "Wait a minute, are you my dad?" And the minute that realization comes forward, his dad blows up. Because why? Because Jeeves shows up and starts, wasting away everyone because he's trying to get toward to Beau and all that. So I felt like this was the part where Beau realized, if I were to do my own thing, this could have been the life I would have had. And it's like him kind of realizing that. But then also, again, getting pulled back in, like, but that's not possible. I can't do that. And then boom, he gets, kind of stuck in a rut once again into his own world and all that. So, Blake, I don't know if you heard me go through all that, but
yeah.
What is your take on that whole third part of the movie?
So one thing worth noting is how the visual effects of that scene are taking place, where it's highly imaginative.
Yep.
It's
very fantasy-like, very animated.
Yeah, there's even a director who has that style where people just immediately are like, "Oh, it's like that director style." I can't recall it now, but there's like, that's part of how that story is told, and it makes it kind of clear this is an imagining. But if you want to take the text literally, it's possible he literally met. He is an old man and met his children there, or the same guy who has anxiety and manifests itself in these horrible things has a moment where his strong imagination imagines a whole nother life, like you're saying, and he's not actually an old man. Or when we see him later in the next part we're going to get at, maybe he actually is an old man and looking back and recalling things. Maybe those things even in a way did happen in some roundabout way. If he's not able, the question is, it's another one of those, like, how could both be true? If he's not able to have sex and hasn't, and yet has 3 children, what's going on there?
Right.
The guy who's spying on him, it turns out, he thinks is his father. He has these suspicions. The other thing I think worth mentioning here, there's the statue that he had bought earlier in part 1 of a mother holding a child.
Yeah.
We'll find out later in the next part we'll talk about is that mother has a statue, same or similar, but a big version outside of her home.
Yep.
And also later in her home, we see a photo of her holding him as a baby, and it looks like it might be that the statue is based off of that, essentially. What's creepy about that photo is, it's a mom holding a child, but the way her hands are like wrapped around his brain, and it looks like she has long fingernails, almost like claws. Like if you were going to see an alien about to eat the brains of a baby, like that is the moment and how it would be held, and like her having literally, like, she's wrapped around his fingers, whatever he's wrapped around.
It's like like in the movie Aliens, the face hugger, like how that thing would like wrap around the head. That's literally how her hand looked like around his head.
Yes, which is the metaphor for like individuation and the parent like needing to let the child go. Clearly part of their dynamic, which they definitely need family therapy. Part of their dynamic is her difficulty letting go and his difficulty individuating, and how it might be too late, and his anxieties from all that. But then at one point he gives that little statue as a gift to another woman who is pregnant, and it seems like this might be a romantic relationship, or like at the very least it is a fertile and lovely woman around his age that he has a nice connection. She's very sweet. And at some point she calls him love or darling, some term of endearment. And now it's in a casual way in one interpretation, but maybe this is this is who his wife is or would be, or the stand-in, and this is a pure love between a man and a woman that he hasn't known up until now. So there's a lot happening in that scene. I think, is this the scene that dragged for you?
Yes, this was the part of the movie where it dragged, because again, it's like you're going through a whole different movie at this point. It's like it felt like
a movie for sure.
Right, exactly.
It's Shakespearean then, of like the play within the play.
Right.
I kind of think of it as, in a way, the opposite of the play within Hamlet. Instead of it being we're going to show what happens if everyone dies on a stage to see how people react to certain things, we're almost doing the opposite. We're saying, what if this dude had a new life and a beautiful story, with much more humanity at the center of it? And what would that look like? and he's watching that, and you're seeing how he responds to that, and it seems like he wants it so badly. He is
Oh,
weeping and
totally.
kissing his
Yeah.
children, and it's clear his children are the most important thing in the world, and he just wants to protect them and take care of them. Similar
Mhm.
to how his own mother is later saying, I'm loving you the way my mother never loved me. He would double down on that again,
Yeah.
of course, which is essentially the promise every parent makes to their own child. And then
Sure.
sometimes they overcorrect, especially in the
Yeah.
case of him and his mom. This is the what if you weren't fucked version of his life.
Right.
It's beautiful. Part of me wants a tight 90-minute to hour 45-minute version of this movie where it's just the bang, bang, boom, like everything that's happening with action and journey from one place to another. Every time he's in a car going from one place, like a propulsion version of this movie
Sure.
might to me be one of my all-time favorite films. This one is an odyssey, and I understand same with Lord of the Rings. For me, like it drags at parts where it's like, okay,
Mhm.
now we're going to do a whole side quest just to get back to the main quest kind of thing.
Yeah.
But this is part of his, whatever this funhouse version of a hero's journey is that he's going through. I did like the artistry of it and how it contributed to the whole story of his life.
Mhm.
I didn't love that it existed at all, and kind of want that part 3 and part 5 to not exist, and like part 4 to end at a certain point. I don't like playing the game of, oh, if the movie ended differently, I would have liked it, and now I didn't. I still loved this movie overall, but these are the parts that do a side story essentially, and
Right.
definitely that is the moment where the guy who was snoring, that's the moment where he fell asleep, and unfortunately was snoring in part 4.
Right, right. Yeah. Which again, part 4 really picks you back up and really really
Oof.
like this is the meat of the movie right here, because I
Yeah.
think it's safe to say that part 4 could also be split into two parts, where we see the full extent of the problems that Beau has been experiencing, why he's so afraid, why he's so kind of sheltered, or whatever the case is, and him coming to the realization of that. So, and I do love the fact that you brought up the whole statue thing, because again, I noticed, like, as he's walking into the house, you see that statue, which is very much similar to exactly what he buys, and to the point where, so Beau goes to the funeral, right, and the funeral's already over. So again, another thing is just like, oh, I've made it all this way and I just missed the funeral, right? Like, I'm not going to hear the end of this. And we're seeing the house of the mom for the very first time. We're seeing all the artifacts everywhere, and we're now getting a sense, like, wait a minute, like, we get a sense of, one, how important she is, and how what big of a deal she is, and then we're also getting a sense of, wow, Beau has been really like a major point of this lady's life in one way or another.
An
And the one
obsession.
thing, yeah, like a sick obsession, to the point where, if you recall the spiral staircase where all the pictures are, those are moments from Beau's life, including him in his apartment on the phone when he was told that his mom died. And I believe there was also a picture of him in the other family's house as well, if I recall or not. So that's where
Um,
the whole surveillance and control thing, I think, comes into play. What were we going to say, Blake? Sorry.
yeah, the buddy I went with, I must have missed it, but apparently this is where you're seeing the blueprint of the building
Yep.
complex he lives in. And you were saying earlier about that, and her
Yep.
logo is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
This is where you're seeing the ads for
Yep.
her company, and including an ADHD medication that
Yep.
he seemed to be the test subject poster child
Yep.
for, which one of the interpretations, I won't get into it later, but my buddy's, one of his theories, like, oh, he was just the test subject of his mom, and that's why he's crazy, is she was just
Ooh,
her little guinea pig for
that's
her business.
interesting. Yeah.
And they're saying, wow, it was miraculous how successful she was. It was like, yeah, 'cause she literally had a human to test on.
Oh,
Um,
that's
and in
fascinating.
some ways, all parent-child relationships are that, where they're just, I've heard parents literally say this, like, yeah, you don't really know what you're doing. You're doing your best, and you're just kind of trying stuff out and hoping it
Especially
works.
with the first one, especially with the first child. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's an ADHD medication. There's a shaving thing. It's like every stage of his life, at some point, in a way, he's the test subject for his mom. Now, maybe this is all metaphorical, kind of like the stuff we were just talking about.
Sure.
But an acne cream, a shaving razor. Like, you don't have to be afraid to shave, kind of thing.
Right. Right.
And then at some point there is what looks to be a psychiatric drug. I'm not clear on what type of drug it is, but I think it was essentially, if you have anxiety, you should take this drug, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be curious. This is definitely a movie that is so fraught with clues.
Mm-hmm.
It might be one of those that's the medicine that he's prescribed later by the therapist. There are definitely, even the directors talked about in the movie, the amount of things he jammed into each scene.
Yeah.
He called it chicken fat, which is like a literary or a criticism term from Mad Magazine. But the idea is essentially, in a comic strip, there's sometimes you jam so much information into the background
Yeah.
that it's, maybe you know this term as a comic book fan, but you're putting so much info there that it can be overwhelming, but it can have its own effect. The whole
Right.
movie has this to where, and the building, there's graffiti that if you read it, it has its messages. There's
Yep.
signs on the door, and the sign changes 2 or 3 times while he's there, including a sign that says, "There's a brown recluse spider in the building. Be careful." And that same place
Yeah.
later has one that says, "Water is back on in the building."
Right. Yeah.
Just before I forget, since I mentioned the brown recluse, it's possible the guy above him in the bathtub who's hanging on, it's possible that is literally just a brown recluse spider, and it's his
Totally.
imagination that makes him a
Yep.
murderer with a knife, or vice versa.
Yeah.
There could be a sign that says there's a guy hanging on and people's ceilings going to jump down. We don't know, but it's probably the brown recluse option.
100%. Yeah. That's how I interpreted it. It's just like, again, it's his fears manifesting, but in like the worst way possible, right? So knowing that there's a brown recluse could be a guy who wants to murder him from his ceiling or whatever the case is. But the guy also looked very nervous too, like he was sweating and all that. So it could have been interpreted in so many different ways. But I'm kind of in the same boat with you. So.
Well, to get back to the mom and the all this stuff that's in her house, because they're all throughout, even the posters on the kid's wall. It's possible the mom put a poster that said, "Be careful of the brown recluse spider."
Sure.
And one way to control someone is to instill fear in them.
Yep.
And some mothers use that as their control tactic. Don't go outside, honey. Don't play out in the street, or you'll get hit by a car or kidnapped, or like satanic panic stuff and child abduction fears. And like, I have a lot of fears personally. And like in religion growing up, it was, his mom tells him, if you have sex, you will die. That is what happened to your father and his father. Ours was like, if you have sex, you will get a disease that will kill you, or you will get pregnant. And like the risk was so high, it was like, not worth it. And literally, it's a good way to get teenagers to not want to do it. If you're like, you will die.
Yeah.
And we won't get much deeper on all that stuff. We could though, but it essentially could just be a control tactic from the mom. There might not even be a brown recluse. He just sees the poster, then sees the spider. He sees the guy, and then the spider actually shows up visually for us on the dude's face. Anyway, all that to say, those visual clues are all throughout, but in the mom's house, it is very much. And I've heard folks, like, when they go back home and they see all the childhood photos and how that can be a trip. Yeah. This is where who I am. This is where I'm from. This is the story of my life, is all condensed into this one location. And that she essentially has a shrine or museum for her business, her home, who she is, and her son is.
And her son,
and her control over him.
Yeah. No, it was really, really, I guess if there was one thing like totally disturbing was seeing all that, because again, it's just one of those things where you start thinking about, there are actually people like this who just have that full obsession with their kid or whatever, and, full control over them. By they have to listen to everything I say. You have to do this and blah, blah, blah. Instill fear in them so that they will obey you and all that. And I've seen it happen, and it's so fascinating. And just seeing all this manifest in a visual form in that way. One of Beau's reoccurring thoughts is the cruise that they went on. And as Beau's a teenager. And that's where he meets this girl that he fell in love with, which is also, I also do truly believe that is another manifestation there in its own. But you hear the mom kind of coaching him like, well, she seems like she is this and that, and she needs an equal. and all that. And I found it interesting that they shared the same bed, like they slept in the same bed together.
I
And
thought there was gonna be a sex scene with the mom and son at some
I
point
actually
or
did too.
something.
I
He
honestly
kisses
actually
her
did
feet
too.
at one point, and there are things where they're crossing lines, and she's
Yeah,
bathing him a little late in life, and like
yeah,
there. But that the Oedipal stuff, there's definitely some of that happening here,
yeah,
and but it's basically regardless of that, it's the boundaries are being crossed, even if not physically or sexually.
right.
But like there's some people who that same issue they have with their parent that can become psychosexual later in life, or it
Yeah,
is earlier, and there's something weird about that too.
yeah. No,
Goodness
totally.
gracious, we
And
don't.
and
I'm glad
and
they didn't lean into it though, because we don't see it, but it is implied enough that if you want to run with that thread, at the very least they're making it very clear boundaries are crossed, even if it's
yeah,
just social boundaries.
yeah. And that could very well be the point of Elaine, who was played by Parker Posey, and is the girl that he meets on the cruise that basically confesses his love for him as she's being whisked away by her own mom.
Wait, is that
Like,
the same girl?
yeah.
How did I miss that?
Oh,
How
you
do you
didn't
know?
realize
Is it the
that?
same character or something? The girl from the flashbacks is Parker Posey?
Yes. So
No.
if you remember, Beau
You
has a
just blew my
Polaroid.
mind.
He has a
Uh-huh.
Polaroid from that trip.
Uh-huh.
And if you look at the dictation, the written thing there, it says "Love Elaine." And so basically, Elaine is the
Oh.
girl that he met on the cruise, who later on shows up at the mom's house as now the adult Parker Posey, played by Parker Posey, who we see a picture of in the mural of the mom's kind
Mhm.
of like portrait. You know how they do those portraits, all the individual photos of everyone, and these apparently were all of her employees, and Parker Posey was one of those photos. He even addresses at one point, it's like, you worked for my mom?
He said I
And
quit a week ago, which I think would have been before she died, which there's some reading into we could do there.
sure, absolutely. But this was the person that Beau has been in love with since that time they met on the cruise.
Jesus Christ.
As she was being whisked away by her own mom, she said, "Wait for me, Beau. I want you to wait for me," which he did. He said, and he even confesses to, like, I waited for you my whole life because you told me to. Which, and then she's like, all right, let's get it on. So they go into the bedroom,
This is the best scene of the movie, in my
which is
opinion.
the most fantastic scene of the movie, where Beau is about to finally have sex for the first time, and with the love of his life. I'm sorry, you wanted to say something?
Just before we set it up, one thing she
Yeah.
does is put on music. So I mean, this is where I'll do the quick aside
Yes.
about music in
Yes.
this movie.
Yeah.
This is an masterful director because
Yeah.
earlier when he's going through the mom's home, they're playing. Even in the trailer, there's a song which I'll leave that one off for now. But in the trailer, there's a song that you can look at the lyrics and it's pretty clear what it's getting at after you've seen the movie. Um, when he's going through the mom's house, the song that's playing is "Everything I Own." Um, and it's saying, "I ain't gonna cry, I won't beg you to stay. If you're determined to leave, boy, I will not stand in your way." But wait, hold on, is this? Um, I might have accidentally pasted the wrong song at the wrong place. Is that the Mariah Carey song? Because that's what
I
I'm
think
gonna get to in a
that's the
second.
Mariah Carey song. I think.
That
Yeah.
is so funny. Basically, it's the "Everything I Own" lyrics are we're going through her house and everything that she owns in that house and her possessions. Um, but in this case, it's getting at here we go. You sheltered me from harm. You kept me warm. You gave my life to me, set me free. The finest years I ever knew were all the years I had with you. And I would give anything I own. I'd give up my life, my heart, my home. I would give everything I own just to have you back again. By the band Bread. We're also getting a Nina Simone song,
Mhm.
which I won't keep doing a ton of resuscitation, but she's saying, "Isn't it a pity now? Isn't it a shame how we break each other's hearts and cause each other pain?" And that like back and forth love song kind of thing, being about the push pull love hate relationship with his mom, and she wants to control him and he can't let go thing.
Yeah.
Then one of the best moments in the movie is she's putting on music, and
Mood music. She has to set the mood, right?
this is always be my baby.
Yep.
Brilliant. Um, well, all the lyrics. If you don't know the song, you know this. Everyone knows this song.
It's
It's
Mariah
a Mariah
Carey's. It's
Carey
like her
song.
number one hit. Yeah.
Uh-huh. But it's I ain't gonna cry, won't beg you to stay. If you're determined to leave, I will not stand in your way. But inevitably you'll be back again because you know in your heart, babe, our love will never end. You'll always be my baby. Including I'm part of you indefinitely. Boy, don't you know you can't escape me. Then they're getting naked, and he's apparently very virile, and he's
Yes.
been waiting his whole life to make
Yes.
love. And the
Yes.
woman of his dreams and his flashbacks is there naked next to him, and she's being real
Yes.
cool about it. You don't have anything to worry about. We're going to do this.
Yeah. And basically they get it on. And again, this is him going into it with the fear that if I do this, I may die because I was told I'm going to.
He knows he's going to die.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like manifesting it and like having a psychosomatic. And he's grabbing his heart, and I'm like, oh, is this dude like going full psychosomatic death? Like, is this how the movie ends? He is here, but he's grabbing his heart because of this pounding fear in his head.
Right.
I think he believes that he'll die, and I even think he feels himself starting to die, which as an anxiety person, that's kind of what a panic attack looks and feels like.
Oh, totally.
Sort of
Yeah.
You think you're dying. Sometimes when someone like just I had a buddy who was like, yeah, I thought I was having a heart attack, thought I was having a seizure, wasn't sure. Turns out just panic attack was my first one. Didn't know what that was about. That dude is having that same experience, which it's funny that panic attacks look a lot like heart attacks in that way, and that's essentially what she's saying will happen.
Totally.
It's happening while they're going. And he's getting the job done, or she is at least, nonetheless.
Yeah. And, they finish. He finishes first, and he's like, oh, I didn't die. And, of course, he's like in this euphoric state at this point where he's just like, I didn't die. Like, I'm okay.
He's saying, thank you. He's like crying like, oh, the best first orgasm with another person at least ever, and I didn't die. And now all of his relief. This poor boy has been so stressed about this possibility his whole life, and the relief washes over him, and it's in his face. And Joaquin Phoenix is acting his ass off.
Oh yeah,
so emotional. Who hasn't had that experience?
It's so emotional, and then only to look up and see, oh shit, Parker Posey's dead. Not only dead, but she's like in a frozen state. Which also. Rigor mortis.
While touching herself. Because she was, when she climaxed, because she was like, okay, you're in there, you're still virile, I guess. You've been waiting for this a minute.
Yeah, which is hilarious too, because this also led to probably one of the most comedic points, because he just like freaks like, ah! And he like pushes her off and like kind of cowers into the side of the bed. Only to now hear his mom in the doorway say, oh, that's it? That's all you basically are going to do? That's all you've been waiting for? So we find out that his mom is not dead at this point, which he admits later on that he knew she wasn't dead, because when he saw the body in the casket, he noticed the birthmark on the hand belonged to their servant, their housekeeper, who has been loyal to her this whole time. So in essence, I felt like this was a multitude of, this is the mom's final test to Beau. How loyal you're going to be to me or not. Like this was like Beau has been faced with challenges and all that. Him giving himself to Elaine, the Parker Posey character, was like the final test there. As like the song says it itself, right? You could choose to leave if you want, but you'll always be mine no matter what. And he chose to leave at that point. That was like his euphoric moment, because he went against what his mom was always saying the whole time. It's like, if you have sex, you're going to die. He didn't die. But yet the world around him crumbled after that. And that was like the big manifestation and kind of the last straw, so to speak. And that's when we get to see the infamous and great Patti LuPone and her fantastic performance, where she took the next 10 to 15 minutes berating him left and right, calling him like every little thing, little miscreant thing to belittle a person. We also find out that she hired the psychiatrist that he's been seeing this whole time, and they were in cahoots. She listens in on all of his sessions and all that, using all of this stuff that he said against her, like against him, and all while the help is carrying this rigor mortis body of Parker Posey out the door into some storage facility or whatever the case is. But yeah, we get to, this is where we finally get to understand full on the full control that this woman had on Beau's life, and how Beau is now faced with the reality that this is my life. This is kind of like where I've been this whole time. This is what I've been dealing with. And hearing it replayed to him in the verbal lashing that he's getting from his mom was so heart-wrenching. It was just so painful. Like, I felt his pain. And then you see him like trying to grovel and be like, I'm sorry, mom, I'm sorry. Like, blah, blah, this and that, to the point where it gets to the point where he just can't take it anymore. And he threatens his mom by trying to choke her, which also was a great, brilliant scene portrayed by both, because you see Joaquin Phoenix in a very devilish state. Like, his face turned into like this, like, I hate you. I hate this life you created for me, and I want you dead. And then you see her just kind of like in shock. Right? I can't believe you're actually doing this to me and all that. And then I love her little like fall and tumble through the coffee table thing, like the glass coffee table, which was like brilliant and all that. And one thing to note, as this part one of this last part plays out, he's walking outside of the house. His face is in a rigor mortis kind of state of shock.
Oh shit! Good call. Okay. Yeah, that's the part where the buddy said that he deserves an Oscar. Yeah. I didn't put that together, and you're comparing that to the Parker Posey moment, right?
Yes. Yes.
The quick aside I'll do is, one, the mom mentions you did it in your mother's bed.
Yes. Really, yes. Yeah.
Which is hilarious. But also, I'm thinking about this, and the director talked about how books really influenced this movie more than movies did, and admitted that movies influenced it for sure. But I'm thinking back on a biblical story that is essentially like an archetypal like story, a metaphor, a parable, but it's told literally in the Bible, that basically a woman was told not to look back at the evil cities where the sin was happening, very sexual Sodom and Gomorrah place. And when Lot's wife did look back, she was turned into salt. And the way it's portrayed visually anyway is like frozen and then becomes salt. And that was her punishment for disobeying. And in this case, it's crazy because, and I'm wondering if I'm sure there are other like Medusa and turning people to stone, something like that.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm sure there are other ones, but that's the one that comes to mind with my background, where a sexual, sinful place, you finally engage with it when you're told not to, and it's a punishment of being frozen. Then you're right, his face afterward.
Oh my God, it was amazing.
That's one of those I got chills. Like, it fucked me up. And all it is face acting.
That's it. And
so good. And him and Patti LuPone with their huge dick, big dick acting.
My God, it was just so good.
What a face off. Yeah.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, because again, like, and you could have easily missed it too. Like if you didn't like really watch him.
It was small on the screen. And
it was very small. But and then there was a brief light that passed through it, and you saw the face like just stuck in this like state of shock. Like oh my God. Yeah, it was just so well done. And this is also that back and forth between the mom and him was also the moment where she mentions the statue. She said, "You had the statue and you gave it away." Because that was like kind of the moment where it's just like her saying, "You gave my love away. You gave me away for somebody else," like that. And
there's a metaphor there too with like killing off a parent, and when you find love or meet someone else, and that's it's essentially kind of like an Oedipal type territory. I don't remember what the story is, but basically like you have a relationship with one parent, and then you kill them off and create your own new family, and there's a social death at the very least, and like you were no longer in their will, you now have your own legal documents with this other person kind of thing going on there. And it's happening with the statue and giving it to that fertile woman, and then it's also happening fucking Parker Posey in
the mom's bed.
The ultimate betrayal is loving another woman.
Oh my God. Now Remind me, the moment we get to see the attic, was this part or was it the next part?
So he is having the panic either right before or right after the mom is berating him. I
Okay,
think it is during her monologue. It is like a
it is.
quick,
Okay.
she's doing her monologue and she's going, "Oh, you want to know what's in the attic?" She's telling him,
Right, right.
because
And
there's like
shows
the
him, right.
therapy. She's playing back audio from their therapy, and
Yeah.
he's talking about the dream. And this might be in the audio or it might be in the conversation they're having. But he's talking about like my brother getting him locked up. And there is no brother. My understanding is the canon of this text is there's only one child. It's
Right.
the one son, Beau. If there is a literal interpretation, my understanding is that's it. And she goes, "Oh, do you want me to show you?" And we recreate the scene from earlier, including how she opens the attic
Yep.
door, where the camera's at. She's
Hmm.
now doing it. Same woman, different body, older woman, and then he goes up into the attic, and shit gets weird. And we got to talk about what happened in the attic,
Oh,
right?
totally.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. We're gonna do that right now. Yeah. I think right now. That's why I brought it up, because I
good
think
call.
this plays very, very important to this part of the story that we are now in, where essentially we get to see this infamous attic that he keeps flashing back to in his dream or nightmare, however you want to call it. And he brings it up to his mom, and this was the part where, like you said, she brings him up there, tricks him because he's afraid. He doesn't want to go up in the attic. He's like, "No, I'm right behind you. I'm right behind you. Go, go, go." And like, "You little shit, yeah, blah, blah, blah." Now you're stuck there, right?
And she says to him, he's saying that that was a recurring dream, and he told his therapist about
Right.
that at the beginning of the movie. And she says, "You idiot! Something that wasn't a dream. That was a memory."
Exactly. Yeah, it was a memory, right? And what we see in this attic essentially are two major things. One, we see what looks to be a shackled Beau who has looks like he's been stuck in there for his entire life. Overgrown hair,
His
nasty,
Tom Hanks passed
gnarly.
away,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
exactly.
sadder,
Yeah.
less sunlight.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we get to see the penis monster,
Mhm.
which was something I was not expecting.
Not at
And
all.
yeah, it was this grotesque, overly grown with huge ass balls penis monster. You
Did you say
know,
it was grotesque?
it was grotesque. Hey, I like what you did there. Yes. Um, and of course he's freaked out. He's like, "I don't know what the fuck I'm saying." And then Jeeves, our buddy Jeeves, breaks into the attic, busts through the window, and goes to town at this penis monster, stabbing in the balls and all that kind of stuff like that, only to get killed by this monster who has apparently like these crab-like claws or whatever, and kind of pierces his head and all that. So, if you wanted to know what the most like horror esque part of the movie was, this was probably it, right? Where you see like a monster
Unless you're
and
into it, don't kink
oh
shame
well,
people. Right?
yeah, no, I'm just saying for
Each
those
their own.
who are not. Now, this whole scene could be interpreted in many, many different ways. I do kind of like what your friend said about, well, what if this was really, if Beau was the subject of the mom, kind of like the guinea pig of all of her products and the medication and all that. And that's why he's shackled up there, because she needs him for testing purposes. And what if the penis is a side effect of all the testing? Where, if you remember when he was with Nathan Lane, he
Oh
said,
yeah, forgot
you
about that. You're right.
right, he said that, oh, you're healing up fine and all that, but I did notice there was something up with your balls, and maybe we should do a sonogram or all that kind of stuff like that, because they look to be really hanging and all
Thank
that.
you. Sending something like that. There was some
Right.
term for it.
Yeah. And then when he was having sex with Parker Posey, it flashes really quick, but I paid attention.
Yeah, yeah, you're
You
right.
see his balls were hugely enlarged during those
Mhm.
moments. And now we're seeing this giant penis monster in the attic with gigantic balls. So could this be the side effect of all this medication that Beau has been undertaking and all that? Now, again, if this is going off of the theory that your friend had, right?
Yeah, that. But also, there's the way in which the phallus is one of the most popular metaphors in the history of human
Sure.
beings. Where you look up in any big city and there's a giant phallus staring back at you, and it's
Absolutely.
about masculine power and
Yeah.
territory and staking claim
Yeah.
and pissing contests and all that shit.
Yeah.
The one where it's possible that's a metaphor just representing his own individual freedom
Yeah.
as her son,
Yeah.
and that thing has been locked away in the attic also. Like
Yeah.
literally, I've heard it from like a woman might say like, "Oh, I have his penis in a glass cage" or
Yep.
something like that,
Yep.
right?
Hmm.
Like you could say, "I
Yep.
got him by the balls." These are literal idioms that we use and expressions we use to describe what is literally being shown in
Mhm.
the attic. I'm glad you mentioned it and brought it back to that. This is why it's nice to have these combos with friends. Is my combo with my buddy, you do something that which then led me back to, and now I'm
Yeah.
putting it together because I was bothered by that, and it reminded me of another movie we could do a comparison with is Men. When at the end of Men,
Oh
something very
yes.
grotesque and freaky and unrealistic happens, but it's a metaphor, and I
Yes.
enjoy that. But this one was so on the nose and absurd and ridiculous. But now I'm seeing it's not really. There's another thing where an interpretation that that's his father, because at some point she's saying, and I don't remember the wording because it would have to be precise to really get a good interpretation off of this, but essentially
Yeah.
like that is what I had to do to create you is like have
Mm.
sex with that thing. And
Mm.
the plot description from a good source I just read is saying it is his father literally manifested
Oh.
as penis, essentially. Like we got a Jabba the Hutt looking ass thing, and now maybe he is seeing that,
Yeah.
maybe, but also there's a version where we can get to the one where her relationship with masculinity and emasculating her son to
Yeah.
use a gendered language. Um, it's possible that there's something like I don't know how I would say this is exactly what that penis meant, but that's the thing that bothered me the most. And we're pretty damn close to possible interpretations, which is kind of what this movie leaves you with is what's it saying about the character's relationship to their
Mm.
own um like dominance,
Mhm.
individualism, territory, what they own and what they don't own, what the ability to stake their own claim, etc. Could that be his actual father manifest as a penis, or actually as if it was just a dick? Like in theory, another option I had was like she cut off the father's penis, and it's just
Oh,
like a science experiment, like grown out of control up
sure.
there. Like we're kind of
Yeah.
in what's it called, Little Shop of Horrors
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
territory
Yeah.
also,
Yeah, for
and
sure. Yeah.
there's a whole
Mhm.
sexual metaphor happening with that movie that might be
Yeah.
inspiring this scene, which I need to do a
Yeah.
little more digging on, like what those things meant. But that's a fun one for this type of like grotesque monster that's actually talking about innocence,
Yeah.
and that character. Watch this just be a fucking adaptation of Little Shop of Horrors.
At the end of the day, it's just his version of Little Shop of Horrors and all that. Yeah.
But there is a possibility that it is in there's that one version I just laid out where it's just a science experiment of a giant penis, and that's how she created Beau. There's one where it's literally his father. There's one where it's literally his father, but it's manifest as balls. There's the one where it's like a metaphor of him being chained up and his balls being chained up, etc. But at least now we're in the territory I'm comfortable with again, where these are metaphors and literary devices being used to help analogize what's happening in the relationship with Beau and his mom.
Yeah. Yeah. And the way I interpreted it as I watched the movie, like as I was like going home and all that was, and you already said it, it was her emasculating him since he was a kid, kind of like claiming ownership of his manhood, claiming ownership of full control of his defiance against her. That's kind of like why he had that recurring bath dream. And then he saw it himself, like this person who he spoke to, his therapist, of being his brother, was locked in the attic. And what she says afterwards too is like, you'll never see him again, like that, which is kind of like telling Beau, you're never going to ever see this side of you again, as far as
Mm-hmm.
I have a say. And basically it's like your manhood and all that stuff was kind of just locked away and kept in the attic this whole time. And this was his attempt to try to get out of it. And that's why you had Jeeves, the crazy ex-military guy, be that vessel to try to take him out. But again, he just can't seem to break free cleanly. And I think that's what eventually leads into this last part two of this final act, where all of a sudden it becomes like a Truman Show-esque trial where
Where
he's
he's
trying to
Bo,
escape.
also Truman Show reference there too.
Exactly,
He's on the
absolutely, yeah.
way.
Where he's on a boat trying to escape the house and try to like flee, and then he gets stuck. Again, it's always Bo getting stuck, and then he comes to realize that he is on trial amongst people, where his mom is there, basically with a lawyer played by the great Richard Kind, who is just so good in this small part. But again, berating Bo about everything that he took for granted, everything that he defied against his mom, when all his mom was just trying to do was make him live a great life and da da da, and all she needed was love and loyalty. And then he has his own defense lawyer who's just not doing a great job. He's like trying to fight back, and then eventually just gets pushed over the edge and dies a horrific death, which was very much an homage to Midsommar. And then when you watch it, you'll understand why that was.
Thank you. Okay, good to know.
Um, but then Bo was left defenseless, and he could not. He could no. He. I think he. This is the point where he finds that he can no longer fight back. That he's now all he can do is suck it up, accept that this is his reality, no matter how much he now hates it and now realizes it. That it gets to the point where he combusts, and that's basically how the movie ends, with like a huge explosion, and he kind of just
the boat flips.
it flips,
So
but
I didn't
you see
see
it.
he
You see him kind of
combusted.
just yeah. You just see him like kind of like blow up and disappear, while the
So the
boat kind of
engine
flips
of
in
the
the middle.
boat is malfunctioning. It's catching
Sure.
fire, and it explodes. You're
Hmm.
telling me that if we went frame for frame, we would actually see his body explode?
I think so. Well,
I
not
think
not the sense
that's
of
me
like
wrong. I didn't get that.
not the sense of like fiery explosion, but to the sense where it like combusts to the point where he just like you no longer see him there.
Gotcha.
Where he could
It
have been
might be
flown
the
away or whatever like that.
I got it, and this is where it tripped me up, and your explanation actually makes more sense. But what I saw was the thing explodes and the boat flips, and it flips so quickly he is now underwater. Because I
Hmm.
think he is still feet glued to the boat. Because we're seeing the boat,
Sure.
what's the word for when someone's like struggling under the water, and then you're hearing it in a muffled underwater way, like
Like get
right
me
as
out. Oh, you're right.
it stops moving.
Yeah,
I
no,
know
yeah.
that now, maybe like some version of both of these things is true because the
Hmm.
physics of it didn't quite make sense either. The thing explodes, the boat literally just flips over so quickly, I couldn't see his body anymore. And I
Yeah.
was just like, oh, did they just do a bad job on the CGI? There's a lot of CGI in this, and apparently the entire thing was CGI.
Yeah.
I'm sure the actors' faces, whatever, are real, but apparently everything else. So something's going on there. There was some talk of how they had to rush the CGI was so difficult. It was one of the most difficult parts of the movie, etc. So
Mm.
at some point, you kind of go like, okay, that's good enough. That's kind of what we're getting at. And maybe there's
Yeah.
another metaphor where if we went screen, he's actually catching on fire because his rage takes him over, and that's why the boat flips. I honestly don't know. We're in such deep metaphor territory, and it's kind of why I'm okay with the ending of Men. Is
Yeah.
like really whatever it is isn't necessarily happening. So if the physics don't make total sense, I'm okay with that.
Right. Yeah. I again, it could have been. You could be right, because I do remember hearing him trying to yell out from, and the way I took it was that he was yelling from space or from this
Okay.
other plane. Where I think the manifestation of him on the boat was kind of like his soul, and he kind of just gave up. Where now he's like, his soul kind of is now in the ether, still trying to call out, help me, get me out of here, save me. But there's no saving him anymore, because
Yeah.
there's no way he can escape. And he
Hmm.
kind of just gave in. And the rage was like the fire in the boat, like kind of just like, the more and more he's being berated, this and that, like, you're worthless, you're nothing, da da da. And that's just how basically
Earlier,
it
that
ended.
rage led him to choking his mom, and this time it
Right.
literally led to his own death, which that's a thing that happens. People's stress gets to them, and it can literally kill you.
Right.
And it can
Absolutely.
sometimes be caused by another person.
Yeah. Now the question is he in real life? Is he really dead, or is this the death of just his soul and his attempt to be free of himself? I feel like that's a way to interpret it as well.
Yeah, it's also in theory it can be a phoenix situation where if this is highly metaphorical, This is the
Mhm.
moment where he realizes I have to kill off this version of my life. I know I now know I will never please my mother, no matter
Yeah.
how hard I try to make it back to her funeral, which she faked and had someone killed. The story was like the woman who helped raise him is the one
Yeah.
who's dead. Like there's a whole thing there.
Who
The one who
agreed to
really,
it, right? Like
yeah,
according to the mom, she totally agreed to it and all that. So much so that her family now never has to work again because I made sure they were all compensated.
and she said it was absolutely worth it because now I know what kind of
Know the
suck.
truth. I
But
know
that
the
is the
truth.
woman who was literally tucking him in bed at night in the
Yeah.
flashback. We don't see much from that character, but that's his maternal character. So it's possible what's actually happening. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to give anyone a this is what happened. Trust me, you're wrong.
No.
I'm not going to do
No.
that. But the way I'm going to look at it for as an option is this is where he essentially transcends this problem. And if he's actually in the attic, then the boat doesn't even happen, and the penis may or may not be real. And is he even in that other part of town, or is that just like in his imagination, or did his mom create that, or does her
Mhm.
logo just happen to be there and she has a blueprint of it? And are those spies? Or all of these are options, yes and no. But one
Yeah.
option for the ending is that he's not dead, that he literally kills off this problem and
Mhm.
essentially transforms, which sometimes when you cut somebody off like that, it can have that effect in your life where
Right.
you literally say, I'm done with this person. I'm starting over. I'm going to be my own person now. And it's
Right.
possible that Beau Is Afraid 2, Beauer Than Ever is going to be a movie about a dude just living out his fucking sweet life in Cleveland and just got a job for the USPS and is kissing his wife every day and raising his 3 boys.
Yeah. The sequel is going to be "You Will Always Bow My Baby." No, I don't know.
Oh, I love that. That was good. That was actually clever.
But yeah, that's, I mean, my gosh, what a movie. I mean, the fact that we how do you say pontificated this long for like over 2 hours, and
Yeah.
still there's so many things you can still interpret from this movie and all that. I mean, before we go into what we gave our final rating on the movie was on Letterboxd and all that, what do you have any like final thoughts or things that you want to mention about the movie as a whole?
I'm just going to throw out a few things real quick. When I'm looking at
Sure.
literary archetypes and psychology shit to interpret this movie, there's so many things, and you're right, it is so dense. I have other things on my list I'm just going to let go
Hmm.
because what you could do is frame by frame essentially this movie and say, is that thing this? Is it that? What else could it mean? And like the chicken fat concept, like the images, the screen is so loaded with things that you can look at the poster and go like, similar to the movie Get Out, where people were just Easter egging the hell out of it. Like,
Yeah.
oh, the
Yep.
cereal was actually a reference to this,
Yep.
and this apartment number is a reference to this bill that passed Congress in the 1800s. And like, that's one thing I really like about some auteurs is you, as much work as you want to put into it, you could probably get shit out of this movie.
Yeah.
Um, the things I'll mention are like Ship of Theseus, the psychology concept of super ego, and id. There's the story of Job from the Bible where he's essentially being tested on
Oh
loyalty.
yeah. Yep.
Um,
Hmm.
that's a fun one for which explains why Bo's had the worst 72 hours in history.
Seriously.
Um, there's one where, and this one I don't give much weight, but I do think it's just like super ego, and id. Basically, everything can be interpreted in these different ways with different moments or parts. But on the politics of it, there's a world where his mother is fascist. The state of nature is sorry. His apartment building is anarchy. The
Okay.
other family is what basically like there's different like types of governments and like ways that you can see like look at the world through leaders and figures, etc. And so you could like if somebody wants to, they could just be like, oh, this is what it's saying about politics and
Hmm.
types of government or whatever. Um, which basically any movie can kind of be looked at in these ways, but this one is so highly metaphorical. That's the level we're getting to. And the last thing I'll mention is during the early part one that you went through earlier, I was thinking this is a COVID movie. This is a movie about someone who's spending too much time, all their worst fears, and living alone.
Yeah.
Because do you remember early on, depending on who you are, what city you're in, but there's this thing where you're afraid to go outside because of
Oh
the
yeah.
zombie apocalypse. And for some people, that fear was real. And there were even stories of, yeah, a few blocks down, there's piles of people waiting outside the hospital, and some of them are dead type shit. Like
Yeah.
the one where you're afraid of everything and agoraphobic, like Beau is, and can't leave the house. Like I was thinking this is a movie that this dude is writing during COVID, and this might be another one, which we've had a few we've reviewed of,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is metaphor of that time, or this is because the person had a lot of time to their thoughts, and Steven Spielberg writing about his childhood and shit. That's another just fully option, an available option for at least part one of the story and that
Yeah.
level of anxiety, etc. I wouldn't be surprised if our anxiety filmmakers, the Lanthimoses, the Safdies, the Ari Asters, are like able to just like get their best workout after spending way too much time in their heads at home.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I'm so glad you challenged me to watch this movie. I would put it off. I would have been too scared. And what Blake was afraid, yes, but no, I didn't have to be afraid. Just popped a Klonopin and had a great time.
It's funny. This morning I read an article where they were interviewing Joaquin Phoenix about this movie, and he said he begs everyone to not watch this movie under the influence of mushrooms. He's like, do not. He's like, whatever you do not watch this movie under mushrooms.
Makes me think he did. Makes me think
Yeah, probably. Like he made the wrong choice.
Ever. He's giving that advice with the amount of conviction of somebody like, trust me, do not. I almost didn't think it. It was even true because I was on the screen. I wasn't even in this movie, man.
Like, don't do what I did. Don't do what I did. But yeah. But everything you said is basically what I also mentioned in my Letterboxd review, where I said, this is a movie where you're going to see all the YouTubers out there, the film geeks like you and I, doing video essays, doing explained videos, just like talking about all their theories and all the meanings behind this movie. And the more you get into Ari Aster, the more you're going to see people have done this with all of his movies. Like if you look at all the videos for Midsommar, all the videos for Hereditary, it's ridiculous the amount of movies they've made, the videos they made about that, because he is that type of director. But I also agree with what you said. This is definitely a product of COVID, where we're seeing a lot of interesting stuff coming out of these creators because of the 2 to 3 years people had to spend at home with themselves and their creativity and their writing and kind of their own anxieties and all that. And we're definitely seeing a lot of that coming out. And this, by far, so far, is definitely one of the more unique things to come out of it all. But as we close things out, so what did you rate this on Letterboxd for you?
It was at a 5 last night. At some point we were talking, I was remembering the forest scene and the CGI at the end. I dropped it to 4.5. Mm-hmm. I'm not, it was really when we were talking about like what the type version of this movie would be. Yeah. That said, it's already in my list of top 150 movies, and it might be an upper echelon of those. Right now, I'm going to say 5 or 4.5, but for now, it's basically as high of a rating as you can get because of the level of artistry and how effective it was.
Nice, very nice. So for myself, it's interesting. So as I got home, I actually gave it a 3. Yeah, but you know how you could say you liked it? Like I did say I liked it because I guess what I was doing was that I was comparing it to his other movies and kind of like how those other movies have affected me. Mm-hmm. However, as we're going through this right now, as we're recording this, I literally just changed it to a 4.
Hey,
because the more I was able to talk through it and think more about it, for all I know, the rating could change again the more I think about it a week from now. Because it's one of those things, you have to sit with it. You have to sit with it and you have to kind of go through it. Yeah.
And it's also to see in a theater with only 2 other people and to not have the buddy afterward, that's a game changer. For me, I would have been much verklempt afterward at the very least, but maybe too perplexed. So I'm glad I had that, and I'm glad we're doing this. That would be an advice to someone if they're going to go see it, is like, have your little coffee date ready for afterward to talk about it.
Absolutely.
I'm doing it in a couple hours. I'm excited about.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, it's great. I'm glad we're able to talk. I'm glad I was finally able to introduce you to the world of Ari Aster. And
You did it.
again, this was the perfect movie to do it. And it's almost as if he knew. He's like, you know what? There's this guy out there, Blake Wolf. He hasn't watched any of my movies yet, but I know he'll like them. Why don't I make this movie for him so he could go watch it? And boy, did he ever. But at the end of the day, we are always curious as to what all of you think out there. I hope you were commenting along the way as you're watching this 2-hour and 24-minute now recording of our discussion of this movie, Beau Is Afraid. We'd love to know, is this a movie that you enjoyed? Is this a movie that maybe you're on the fence about after watching, but maybe listening to us talk through it, the more you appreciate what you saw? Or is this a movie that maybe you had no interest in, decided to hear us talk about it, and now you're like, you know what? I actually want to go watch this movie. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and all that. If this is a movie you hated and you still endured over 2 hours of hearing us talk about it, we want to know, wow, how did you do that? And why did you not like the movie? We definitely would love to hear all of your thoughts and comments. At the end of the day, it's all about the discussions, the talks that we could have about movies like this that really make us love what we do and love sharing our opinions and passions with all of you out there in this great community. So with that being said, that ends our episode of Movie Time. Sorry to see it end like this for now, but I mean, this was just a great conversation overall, and I'm sure we're going to have more fun conversations moving on as we progress through this year of movies. Stay tuned next week. We're doing something fun next week. I actually, this is going to be a surprise for you, Blake. So we are about to hit summer movie season. I say let's create a game out of it. We're gonna do this is gonna be our first year doing it. We're gonna make this an annual thing, where it's gonna be our 2023 summer blockbuster box office draft.
Summer box office blockbuster draft.
Draft.
Daniel, I'm really that's a good idea. I like it. That's where I felt like we were going with when we were talking about making the game.
Hell yeah. Movies. So we're gonna take the pool of summer movies that are coming out in the summer, and we're gonna have a draft. Blake is gonna get to pick 10. I'm gonna get to pick 10, and we're gonna see when the summer ends who has the highest box office numbers as far as. Yes, sir.
What the hell?
No. We're doing it box office, baby. Well, we could make that like a side game too. Just see like, okay, now how did this rate towards Letterboxd and all that? But no, the number one thing you have to approach it with is what's going to get the most out of the box office dollars there for the summer. So again, it's summer blockbusters, right? Now what we could do is as we approach Oscar season, we can do a similar game, but what's going to get the more buzz as far as like Oscar talk and contention and all that. But we could talk about that another time. So if you're interested in hearing us play this game, definitely tune into next week's episode. But as we close things out for today, Blake, where can people find you on the interwebs?
I'm on the Letterboxd website with the screen name, last name Wolf, common spelling on all words, last name Wolf.
Very
where
nice.
You will me give 4.5 and then maybe 5 later, and then I might drop it back down. Maybe I'll move it around a little bit as I think about this movie more and have deeper combos about it.
Hey, it's still fresh in our minds, so things are allowed to change for sure. But as for myself, you could also find me on Letterboxd. You could see the tag name on the screen in front of you. And just like with Blake, definitely do follow Blake. I love his Letterboxd. He has some great lists there for sure to check out. And for everything else that is LOWKEY Geek, you see all the tags on front of you on the screen. Twitter, Instagram, most importantly here on Facebook. Again, if you haven't done so yet, please make sure hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell to get notified every time a new video is posted. LOWKEY Geek can be found on your podcast platform of choice. Just type in LOWKEY Geek there, where you can find this episode and many others to download and listen to on the go. And last but not least, once more time, if you are in a position to help further support and help this channel grow, check out our affiliates found in the description, where you could find something cool, hopefully for yourself or for a loved one. And by doing so, you will be helping support this channel at no additional cost to you. And again, we thank you for all that. So with all that out of the way, this is it for us this week. This has been Movie Time. I've been Renee. That's been Blake. This has been Movie Time. Like I said before, stay cool, stay classy, stay safe, and we will catch you all in the next one. Peace out, y'all.